Okay, friends, it's Doc, ready for tonight's episode of the Mesoverse. So we'll turn this down just a little bit. Well, that's not how you turn it down, so this is the one we'll turn down. We'll turn this one down a little bit. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about aquaculture, and we're going to have some cool videos and such on. So I'm going to jump into the Discord and get some of the other folks around. Let me turn this down just a little bit more. Make sure everything's got everything set up. Now let me get up here to Discord and pull the gentleman down. There's Yam and Mark, and welcome Yam and Mark. Okay.
Admiring your starting soon screen.
Oh, thank you. So, yep, just trying to get everything else. It's the easiest way to get everything set up. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about. I was telling everyone we're going to talk a little bit about aquaculture and aquaponics. We're going to start off with just there's some pretty cool videos on the internets. So we're going to talk about some cool videos, and then I've got a really awesome video to watch just a little bit later. But we're going to start off with just a very basic video. I've seen this guy's designs. I've played around with a few of them. So yeah, and we can fix that in the future with with all the letters attached to your name. So let's let me make sure I got the camera and everything set up, because as much as I was messing around with everything else, you know, because I sit in an old chair, it doesn't always yeah, look at that, like I look like I'm a midget. Okay, cool. So, and we'll transition, and hello everyone. So again, like I said, we're going to get this set up. We're going to watch this video, this particular one that we're going to be watching. I'll make sure I share it.
D-Live still has massively loud music on it. Maybe I'm on a delay. Probably delayed.
Okay, well, I'll just turn it off just in case.
No, hang on. I'm going to refresh it. It might be me.
No, it's okay. I didn't need the music. I didn't need the music playing in the background anyways. It was just kind of little music set up. You know, I need.
Hang on a second. No, I think that was me. It was probably me.
One day I need actually
double check.
I need a true.
Oh, it's okay now.
A true mixing board. So, Mark, for you guys to hear the audio on Discord, is it better if I share the screen or share the application? Or do we not know if either one works better?
I don't know, but Rhythmic said something the other day that makes me think that if you just share the application, you might get the sound to work better.
Okay. We're gonna go with that to see if that makes any difference.
The whole thing disappeared. Fucking weird.
Okay. So, great. So, this dude does some pretty cool, really simple aquaponic designs. So we're gonna go through. We're gonna watch this one, and I'm definitely interested in you guys' feedback as we watch this. So we can pause and watch it as we continue on. And if anybody else in the chat has any feedback, I am definitely interested in that as well. So I'm going to start hitting play now.
Yeah, I'm already impressed with his beard.
People like to use to set up their own backyard and in-home aquaponic system.
Can you guys hear it in Discord?
I'm not sure about how straight the bottom of his beard is, though.
Yeah.
I've never seen a guy with a beard that's
just before we hook into the clip,
that's that like straight.
Channel know that we have a couple of playlists chock full of helpful aquaponic clips. If you wanted to suss them out,
try and get past
there will be links in the description down below, and a link or two also at the end of the clip. if you can wait around that long to suss them out. You can also hit that
Holy
little
shit,
subscribe
that's a
button
big...
down there and check
Yeah.
the bell icon once it appears.
So can you guys
And that
hear it
way
in
YouTube
Discord?
will know to send you notifications whenever I upload future clips looking at aquaponics or maybe component builds and that sort of thing. Now, the 3 system designs I will be talking about today are by no means the only way you can hook up an aquaponic system. They're just the 3 most basic and easiest for people to wrap their heads around. So all these systems at a minimum do require some essential components, them being a fish tank to hold the fish, an air supply to deliver oxygen to the fish. We also need some form of solids
if I
removal
translate
system,
it to the right
biofiltration
video.
to process the fish waste to grow bed to grow the plants. We're also going to need a water pump and also in some cases a sump tank as well. Now, I've recently published a clip that looks at the basic components you will need for building and backyard aquaponics system. So I suggest that you suss that one out if you're not familiar with any of these components. There is a link down in the description and there'll also be one at the end of the clip. So the first little system we'll have a look at is known by most as the basic aquaponics system. It consists of a fish tank, water pump to move the water around the system, some sort of solids capturing device, and then a biological filter, which in this case is also our grow bed. Now, the way the water moves around these systems is pretty basic. It is picked up by the pump in the fish tank along with any solids created by the fish and is delivered into some sort of a filtration device. I like the little canister filters because they're very efficient at collecting the fine solids created by the pumps as they smash up all the solids fish waste. From the little canister filter, you get very clean water discharging into the grow beds. Now, in this little system here, I've included a bell siphon. What happens is the water level will rise until it initiates the siphon. Then all that water in the grow bed will then be dumped back down into the fish tank, allowing oxygen to get down into the bacteria that process the fish waste and also the roots of the plants. Just quickly, there are other methods to regulate the water height or cycle through your grow beds, but I'll be covering them in another clip down the line. Now, there's a couple of basic rules of thumb when it comes to aquaponics. One that is, applies across the board, no matter what the design is you need to have enough biofiltration in the system, basically enough media somewhere to process the waste from the fish that you will be holding in the fish tank, and you can check out that little clip up there if you want to learn more about that. One that pertains in particular to these little small basic aquaponic systems is the sizing of the tank versus grow bed. Good rule of thumb to follow is the fish tank should be twice the size or twice the volume of the media bed that it will be servicing. So when the water exits the fish tank, fills up the grow bed, there will be enough water left in the fish tank to not only cover the pump, but not to stress out the fish. Now, these little basic systems can be made out of all manner of bits and pieces. Fish tanks with little flower pots on top. I've made a small one for some friends of ours out of some small storage totes. The first little system that we built here was made out of the 50-gallon or 200-litre drums. The fish tank was a drum laying on its side, and the 2 grow beds were made out of 2 half barrels with bell siphons inside them. The water was pumped up the back of the grow beds, emptied into them, and then was discharged via bell siphons down into the fish tank below. Now, this system didn't have a solids filter. It was back when I was quite prepared to muck all the solids out of the grow beds as they filled up slowly, but I would definitely recommend that you include a solids filtration onto anything that you build. Now, another popular version.
So Yam, you were asking a question about the solids and that kind of stuff. That's why he was having the one particular aquariums, like the one containers, so that you could capture the stuff. One of the things that I know, like he was using T-shirts, I noticed, but one of the ideas that I've seen a lot of.
Are there some kind where the water doesn't go? Isn't there some kind where the water doesn't go back into the fish?
No, you want the water. You want that full. You want that full. You want that full cycle, because
Okay.
you want some of the nutrients from the fish emulsions to go into the plants, but not all of it. So
Okay, just some of the.
yeah, just a very, very. You don't want the solids. You want like the vitamins and the such that's going to go into the soil. You just don't want the. You don't want the really hot. You don't want the stuff. But those what are they, loofahs? Those things that people wash themselves with that are look like they're like plastic. I think they're called loofahs.
Yeah, loofahs.
Yeah, those are actually spectacular for a median because you can put a whole bunch of those into a thing, and then you can rinse it out, and then you can always throw those into the wash machine, clean them up really well, and then use them again. And they're
anything with a very high surface area.
Yep.
So
And,
like stuff that's like got lots of crinkly edges and or like tape. Like tape is really good. Just lots and lots, like plastic tape. Just anything that's rough. That's rough. You don't want
that's
shiny
really
stuff,
bothering me
it's
though.
got to be rough and lots of surface area, and you just need to move lots of water past it, and it does the magic.
yeah.
But what was new for me there was the siphon thing, because like I've seen lots of filtration systems for aquariums, but I've never seen somebody because that's not a filtration system for the fish. He's using the fish to feed the plants.
Yes.
So he's doing things differently than what fish keepers do, and that siphon thing is something that fish keepers don't do. But I don't quite understand why, because you've got to get air to the bacteria, but like why don't people do that in aquariums if that's the right thing to do? If it's the right thing for him to do, because it seems to be he's just trying to do the same thing. So, you see what I'm saying? I don't understand why that's suitable for that, but you just don't ever do that in normal aquariums.
Probably because if you're not growing plants, and such, then you might actually get like a nitrogen or an ammonia buildup inside that soil up top. So you would also
Doc,
have.
why doesn't the poop go in there, and why doesn't the poop go into the soil? Do they want it to just be rocks? I mean,
No, okay, so
is it
inside
aquaponics, some of the nutrients just coming through, or do they ever use the fish crap for anything else, like throw it out into the grass or anything, or like?
Oh no, so the fish emulsions is great to put to augment into soil. Because the microbacteria in the soil can break it down, but because in aquaponics there's not a lot of microbacteria, like there's no nematodes, there's no earthworms going through it, there's not bugs, it can't get broken down as quickly, and because depending on the cycle, sometimes that water might be emptying and filling every 15 minutes.
Right. So it's because it's aquaponics and it's not something else, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, Mark, that's a really, I'd actually be really interested to look into more of your questions you're asking is why more people with aquariums, why that isn't an option. There could be other reasons. I mean, like I've had an aquarium for 20-25 years. And they tell you that if to run a proper aquarium, you're supposed to empty out like 1/3 of the water every week and replace 1/3 of the water. I have never ever done that in my entire life.
That's not true.
So
can't you like make a self-sufficient aquarium? Basically, it's got its own little ecosystem where you don't have to clean it out.
That's what I do. I don't.
But it's set up right. You don't ever need to change the water, and it's perfect.
Yeah, the evaporation in my house, I just have to add water. It evaporates enough, and so I just add water. But no, I don't ever clean my aquarium. The only thing I do is the filters. I occasionally will clean out the filters because after 8 months they get built up with fish emulsions and such like that. But then I just use that fish emulsion mud and add it into my gardens or make a fertilizer tea or something out of it. But no, that idea, that video the first one that he just did, that is actually the simplest one. I've made a prototype of that before. My big problem is that I kept breaking pumps. I didn't have the pump set up right. But like for example, for us, like for Golf, Yam, and me, one of the easier fish to raise in those would be like a catfish, or to raise like a bluegill, or like any type of sun panfish.
The best fish I ever owned was a pacu.
Now, if you live in a little bit warmer region, like if we were like Tennessee or south, then tilapia is one of the best to raise in the kind of setup that he has, because you can grow tilapia really fast. Just tilapia like a lot warmer water than the other the other fish do. So sticking with a cold water fish for us that live up north, then we don't have to worry so much about heating it and such like that. Then we don't have to worry so much about heating it when the weather gets extremely cold and such like that. So I'm gonna jump into the next part. So
version of these little basic aquaponics system is called the chop and flip. That's where you take a watertight container, chop off the top section, flip it over to create a grow bed, and the remainder is the fish tank down below. If you are interested in building your own little chop and flip IBC aquaponics system, I have a complete walkthrough clip that goes through the building of one of these systems in the playlist listed in the description down below. And I would also suggest that you pair it with something like a canister filter, which I also have a DIY build clip of in the same playlist, so check them out if you're interested. Now, one of the reasons I really like these IBC chop and flip systems is that they can form the backbone of the next two systems we're going to have a chat about now. Now, this next system is known by a couple of different acronyms. There's CHIFT.
So I'm gonna mention I've actually played around with the chop and flip. I am not a fan of them. They're fast and easy, and they're down and dirty, but they have some issues that I don't necessarily like. They're hard to, if something screws up with the system, they're hard to clean, they're hard to maintain, and because of the way you're building them, you're kind of limited to your spacing. So at least with the basic chop and flip. Now, I'm very interested now how he said that those could be useful in the future with other things. So let's continue on.
PIST, which is constant height in fish tank, pump in sump tank. I think I've got that right. And also CHOP, which is constant height one pump. I prefer to call it a single loop aquaponics system because that pretty much all describes what the water is doing, flowing in a single loop. As I said, the chop and flip can also be upgraded into one of these styles of systems. So basically the fish tank becomes the sump tank and the grow bed on top just stays as a grow bed. So to follow the water flow in one of these systems, we'll start off in the sump tank. The pump picks up the water and delivers it to the fish tank, where obviously we have fish and some air stones to provide the fish with some dissolved oxygen. So the water entering the fish tank displaces some of the water and the fish waste from the bottom of the tank into a pipe arrangement called a solids lifting outlet, or SLO for short. The end of the pipe arrangement sits just above the base of the tank, creating a small gap which water and solids can exit the fish tank but prevents fish from escaping through to different parts of the system. At the top of the pipe, you have a sideways sitting T-fitting that is connected to a pipe that runs out through the tank wall. Now, the reason we have this T-fitting at the top of the pipework is to prevent a siphon from occurring and draining all the water from the fish tank. This can come in handy, particularly if you have a bit of a failure in the system, a blackout or a pipe leak somewhere else. It may pump the sump tank dry, but you will always have a constant level of water in the fish tank, which I can guarantee you they will very much appreciate. So the water that exits the fish tank then runs into some sort of solids capture device like this radial flow settler. As the water velocity slows in the settler, bits of solid fish poop and what other waste drops slowly out of the water column and collects on the base of the filter. The clean water that exits the radial flow filter by gravity then flows out to the grow bed side of the system. This is where, again, you basically have a biofilter situation in the grow beds themselves. The bacteria will be oxidizing the ammonia produced by the fish, turning it into plant available nitrates, and the water cycles through the grow bed back down into the sump tank, where it is picked up by the pump, flows back through to the fish tank, creating a single loop. One of the biggest benefits of having the system set up in this configuration is that you need a relatively small size pump because basically all it's doing is picking up water from the sump tank, running it up into the fish tank, and then gravity is doing the rest of the work for you to bring the water back around again into the sump tank. A design like this would definitely be something to look into if you were looking at going off grid, because there's some very efficient little 24-volt pumps out there that would easily, work well on a solar and battery style system. Now onto the next system, which was originally called the CHOP 2. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't give you a very good description on how the water moves through the system. For that reason, I like the names either split flow or dual loop, mainly because they give you some indication of what's going on with the water in the system. Now, this split flow or dual loop system does share the same component layout as the single loop, but where it differs is how the pump moves the water through the system. So we'll start off in the sump tank. To begin with, the line coming off the pump is fitted with either a T or a Y fitting, splitting the flow into two different loops, one for the fish or aquaculture side and the other for the grow bed or hydroponic side. Now, in the original Chop 2 configuration, the water was pumped to the fish tank, exited out through the solids lifting overflow and then back down into the sump. Now, many folks aren't too happy with running their system like this, because what it means is a lot of those solids and unprocessed ammonia will travel back into the sump tank where they can be picked up again and then delivered back into the fish tank. So myself and a lot of other people have decided to add in the solids filter, just like in the single loop system, and also a biofiltration component before the water gets back to the sump tank. Just quickly, a biofilter does not need to be a complicated piece of equipment. What we're looking to do is create enough surface area for the bacteria to colonize so they can process the fish waste into plant available nitrate.
There you go, Mark. Did you see he's using a bunch of bottle caps? Yeah, so perfect.
Yep,
yeah.
That's what I used in when I built one, just like that.
It can be as easy as having a basket pack full of shade cloth or other suitable material under the inflow from the solid settler in the sump tank. Just make sure that it's easy enough to access so it can be removed and cleaned a couple of times a year. You can also install a standalone biofilter like the moving bed bioreactor we've included in our builds here. And once the water exits the biofilter, it's back in the sump to be pumped around the system again. Now, the second loop of water in the split flow aquaponic system runs out to the hydroponic or the plant growing side of the system. There at the grow bed, it is regulated by valves, which allows you to control the flow rate into each individual bed. This not only helps you regulate the flow if you're using some sort of a siphon device, but also if you're using other grow methods like a deep water culture or a nutrient film technique where you want the flow rate to be a lot slower. Now, in this bed here, we've got our bell siphon, so once the bed fills up, it triggers the siphon event, the water flows down into the sump tank where it's free to mingle with the other water and then be delivered to either loop of the system once more. Now, of these three designs, I prefer the split flow system the best. The reason being is I have greater control of how the water moves through the system as a whole. I can restrict flow into a grow bed if I want to swap it out from a media bed into a raft bed, as I mentioned before, as generally you want a much slower flow rate into that style of bed. It also means I can isolate beds to treat pests if I'm using something that I have some concerns may affect either fish or crustaceans if I'm using them in the system. So I just think it is a lot more adaptable system and a lot more resilient if anything ever goes wrong. Now, please keep in mind that there are other tweaks you can do to these systems, but I've tried to keep this clip as basic as possible just to help you newcomers get your head around the concept and the layout of a basic aquaponics system. Now, there will be other clips coming to the channel, things like the dual drain outlet for your fish tank and also the mineralization tanks. So yeah, keep an eye out for them if they're something you're interested to adding to your system. And if you want to be notified, as I mentioned before, all you need to do is subscribe and tick the bell icon when it appears, and hopefully YouTube will send you notifications when those clips arrive on the channel. And also too,
So that's some pretty cool, lots of cool stuff there. We're gonna look through a few more, but now, Yam, have you ever done anything with aquaponics or hydroponics or anything of that sort?
No.
Okay,
No, absolutely
you?
not.
How about you, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few comments on his design.
Okay.
I'm
interested.
I think that I don't know why he's not using a bottom drain. Like in aquariums, in pond systems, like proper real systems, you have you can see he's having to bring the water back up above, and then like why isn't he just got a drain at the bottom? Like if you look at the left hand side of where the water's coming in, he's bringing the water up a pipe and then going back down again. There should just be
pull the graphics back up. Yeah, let's take a look at it. Where are you talking about, Mark? On the left side or the right side?
On the left side.
Scroll over there, see if it'll. You mean
That's
where the fish are?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Let me see if I can. Let me
I don't
back
know.
up just a
It's a
little
bit
bit.
blurry.
That's a good question.
You can
Is it
just have
something?
the drain over there.
I think
And
it has something to do. It has something to do with that upper pipe, that
So the water
upper
that
T.
exits
He
the fish.
explained it when he talked about that T. Something to do with it. Either I don't know what
it
the
doesn't
function of
need
that
to.
T
It can
was.
just go out the bottom.
Yeah, it could just go out.
Probably,
Yeah.
but is it possible it would cause suction to the fish? Like a incorrect kind of suction that could draw them down and hurt them or something?
That system requires suction. That system requires a pressure to be like an atmospheric pressure to push it around. Why is he pushing water above the height of the water level? Because he's requiring there to be enough water to come in from the other side to offset it. It's like, I mean, my other criticism is that he's what you don't do is you don't pump fish poo, right? Because if you pump fish poo, you break it up into small bits, and then it makes it difficult to process. So
Well, I think this particular one we're looking at right now, I actually don't think this one is pumping any fish poo because that pipe.
It is. He's kind of like just got a filter that's just a manual filter that's just capturing the fish poo as it goes into the tank. But then still most of the fish poo is going to be in the tank on the right hand side. If you scroll over to the right hand side, you can see where it's going in.
Hold on, I have to move forward just a little.
I'm not sure what mock means about top part is so he can purge. Purge in what way?
Right. So you
It suction the bottom to flow
have
down.
the pump at the bottom. You have the pump at the top. Right, and you have
I understand the maturity and gravity.
Where the water is, that should be a cylinder that's round, and then the water goes in and it spins around and around, and all the fish poo drops to the bottom, all the solids drop to the bottom, and then you then draw the water from the top. So that perfectly removes all of the solids.
Oh. So do all the solids go out to the waste bucket outside? In theory, or at least some of them.
They drop to the middle of the cylinder, and then you just have the cylinder is then shaped in like a funnel, and then you just have a tap that you just open the tap every now and again. And you just extract the best fertilizer that you can possibly get.
Okay. See, I don't know if he explained that or not. Maybe he did. I missed it. Yeah, he probably did. I probably fell asleep.
What he's doing there is he's having to capture all of the fish poo in that like filtration system. And
in the middle one.
Like he just needs to just be using conventional pond keeping techniques. I think he's trying to reinvent the wheel, and that's all been solved like 20 years ago by fish keepers. Or maybe I don't get it, and there's some reason why he's doing things differently that I don't understand.
Well, let's see. He's got some other videos. Let's see if he does a break. Let's see if he does a complete build out of one of those. Maybe we'll get some more clarification of that. So this one is the. It was the second one. It was called like the Chop and Drop 2 or something like that.
I wish people did more with hydroponics.
Okay. Let's see if...
How's it going, folks? It's Rob here. I knocked together the little aquaponics system you can see behind me. It's a little chop and flip barrel jobby for an aquaponic workshop I held with Save Your Soil Permaculture a couple of weeks back. And I've been pretty chuffed with the results.
Oh, this is a really simple one.
I posted a couple of pictures to social media, Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. And
that'd be one like you could keep in your house.
Yes, this is a really simple. I actually have the blueprints to this one.
Aquaponic IBC system. I posted a clip on a couple of weeks back.
So what type
the beauty
of fish
this one though is it's small enough that you could pretty much all tuck it away anywhere.
If you're going to not eat the fish, goldfish.
On a small balcony in a small courtyard, or even on front landing if it's large enough for you. And it pretty much all gives anyone a chance to grow a couple of greens or herbs aquaponically. I mean, you could toss a couple of ornamentals in there if you just wanted to make a nice floral arrangement with a couple of goldfish swimming underneath. Just quickly, the plumbing parts for today's build should be available from most plumbing, irrigation or hardware supply stores. The tools I'm going to use are a rechargeable drill, jigsaw, hacksaw, utility knife, ruler, marker pen and a few other odds and ends like my little PVC pipe cutter. So this drum here was picked up from a local feed store. If you're in a more urban setting, you might want to try online trading groups and sites like Gumtree or Craigslist, as they often have drums and barrels and containers offered on there. The best containers to use for aquaponics are ones that have had foodstuffs or liquids that are easy to clean out. I'm not too worried about this one as it smelled pretty fruity and sweet, so it's probably some sort of a drink concentrate. I'll still be giving it another good clean out once the grow bed's been cut off the top. When looking at barrels, if you get a chance, just check out the bungs and make sure they've got a good rubber seal. It just saves you having to seal them later. This one here had a pressure relief valve in it, so I unscrewed it, took out the little valve and siliconed it up with a fish grade silicone. Just check your aisle at the hardware or plumbing store for a fish grade one suitable for aquariums. To mark out the grow bed itself, I came down from the top roughly around about 19 centimeters or 7.5 inches and just placed a few dots with a permanent marker. I then went along and just joined them up using my flexible metal ruler. If you don't have a flexible metal ruler, maybe some sort of flexible plastic straight edge would do the same job. Next, I drilled through a hole for the jigsaw blade to be started off in. With the barrel itself, I'm using a timber blade with this one here. I just find that they don't clog up as fast as the metal blades, but do be careful when you're using it. If you push too hard, you will cut outside the lines. I'm also cutting, as you can see, on a blue tarp here because I don't want these little blue plastic flecks all through the lawn and aquaponics area. Once the cuts were made, I cleaned up the burrs along the edges using the side of my utility knife blade. Do be careful if you use the blade because these little fellas are very sharp. I've actually gone out and purchased a deburring tool to make this job a lot easier and slightly safer in the future. Now, as for access ports so you can get in to muck around with the plumbing and look at the fish and feed the fish and whatnot, I'm using a very basic little template. For the access port at the rear, I'm just going to use a takeaway container lid. And what I'm going to do is pop it roughly 50 mil or 2 inches from the top lip. Just going to get this lid and draw a line around. I'm going to put a couple of pilot holes here around the front. What I'm going to be doing is marking down 50 mil in 2 spots because here I've made up a bit of a template using the takeaway lid just to form the 2 sides here and then join them together using a ruler. So that will be our front viewing port. Now, you don't have to go with something like this. A lot of people, as you would have seen if you've searched around barrelponics online, you'd see people cut in a little fish shape in the front here, a little bit of a novelty idea. I think that's fantastic. You could do like a whale or whatever you want really, but I'm just sticking with this. Just gives a larger area, a larger viewing port for kids to have a bit of a gander at the fish inside. So there we go, a bit of a rough mark out there. Just to make it easier to cut with the jigsaw, I'm going to put a couple of pilot holes here and then we'll get to cutting it up. So I'm starting off the jigsaw in the pilot holes, and again just be careful how hard you push the jigsaw through because it doesn't take much for you to go offline and end up with a slightly larger hole. Just a bit of a tip, it does help if you can straddle the barrel when you make the cuts. It just helps keep it steady if you're a one-man show. So once the cuts were made, I went around all the surfaces with the edge of my utility knife blade just to knock off any of the loose burrs that were hanging around. So now we've got to drill a couple of holes in the grow bed, one to allow water to come up from the pump and the other to allow it to fall back down into the fish tank via the bell siphon. So the first cut I'm going to make, it will need to take this little tank fitting or bulkhead fitting. It's a 20mm or 3/4 inch one. For that I'm using a 29mm or 1 1/8 hole saw. It's just large enough to take the thread and should give us a nice cozy fit. So the bulkhead fitting needs to be far away enough from the side of the grow bed so a 90mm media guard made from a stormwater pipe can be placed over the top of it. Clear up the edges with the deburrer. For the water coming into the bed from the pump.
What'd you say, Goff?
What's the point of the bulkhead?
I don't know yet. I think he'll describe that in just a second.
I'm using this little 20mm or 3/4 inch PVC fitting. It's got a thread on the end. That will allow another fitting to thread onto it underneath the bed. There's just a little O-ring there that'll help give it a nice watertight seal. Now for this jobby here, I'm using a 25mm or 1-inch hole saw. It's going to be a very snug fit. So once the hole was drilled, I just got in there with my new little deburring tool and just gave it a bit of a clean up. It was actually a snug enough fit that I got to screw the valve fitting in. So I'm ready to connect the grow bed on top of the fish tank, and what I'll be using today are these little zip ties. They're a UV stabilized zip ties, so they shouldn't break down in the sun at all, and they're going to be more than secure just to hold a grow bed full of light clay media, especially since the grow bed itself will be sitting on this little lip here on top of the edge of the fish tank below. So the weight will be taken by the fish tank itself. I've already drilled 6 holes through. Unfortunately, I thought I'd press record on the camera, but I haven't. But basically what I've done is I've come along and in 6 positions around the top of the grow bed and fish tank, I've zapped the holes, and that'll pretty much will be what takes these UV stabilized zip ties. So with these zip ties, I'm going to be feeding them in from the inside, so the little locking mechanism is out of sight. It's in through this hole here, and down around again. We have the grow bed on. I'll just go around and tighten these guys up. Also too, these little tails, you can just get under there with a pair of scissors or your utility knife and just chop them off. So now that the grow bed's on nice and securely and we've got the holes zapped through the top, we can start to work on the plumbing. So to begin with, we'll start with the pump. Now this one here is a 1200 litre an hour job. The other one I have in the existing barrel system is a 750 litre an hour pump. I just don't think it has quite enough oomph. That's why I've decided to upgrade to this one for this system, and I'll be swapping one of these into the other barrel system once I'm done. So to begin with, we need to run the water from here up into the grow bed. What I'm going to be using is this flexible aquarium grade pipe. So it's pretty easy to attach, just push it straight onto the fitting on top of the pump. Now what I'm going to be doing is inserting one of these T's above the water line here, and what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to place on a little valve here, and this valve will allow water to shoot over the surface of the water of the fish tank, oxygenating it, and it'll also give me some level of flow control to the inlet in the grow bed. So I think that's a pretty decent height there. So what I might do is I'll just cut this pipe here. You might find you need to heat up this hose a little bit just so it stretches to take the fitting. So I'm just going to run a little section of hose from this part of the T into the valve. And now we only want a little bit here, just enough to get over that barb. So we'll cut him off around about there, I think. Move the finger, and then we'll just push him onto the side of the T-piece. So this section here will go into another piece of hose that will then be pushed onto this nut and tail fitting that will screw onto the valve socket that comes through the grow bed. Just to give you a quick look at this nut and tail, it's a 20mm barbed one that screws onto a standard hose tap via a little adapter that screws into the top. The valve socket that's going through the top of the grow bed also has an O-ring on there just to make sure it's a watertight seal. All sorted out. So now I'm just going to pop this little valve connector through this hole, if I can find it. Need to screw him down a little bit. So now we're just going to screw the nut onto the adapter that's on the valve socket and then connect it to the pump. And that little lead will end up going through the little service port we have up the back there once we have all the rest of the plumbing sorted out. Now this valve socket needs a section of pipe pushed into it to take the water to the top of the grow bed, and on top of that I'm just going to be pushing on a little 20mm or 3/4 inch T, and we'll just have a little bit of water coming over either side. Now you can go and get ornamental fountain heads and that sort of thing. Make sure it's not something that's going to spray all around the place, just drop the water back into the top of the grow bed. Now for the height of this standpipe, I'm pretty much all coming up probably about 30mm or 1.25 inches just above the top of the grow bed there, popping a mark. Now I'm going to use my PVC pipe cutters, but you can also just use a hacksaw. So that now just gets pushed into there. To secure the standpipe into the valve socket, I'm running through a pilot hole and then zapping in a 316 stainless steel screw. You could glue it in place if you want. I just figure using the stainless steel screw method means that I can reclaim the parts if I decide to modify the system later. Now just on top of that, we're just going to have this little fitting here. So to begin with the drain side of the build, we'll have a look at the shroud first.
Yeah, this is just a single tank. This is just a single tank design of what he's doing. So.
This is the media guard that will stop the media from getting in and clogging up the bell siphon. The media shroud for this siphon was a 200mm length, or just under 8-inch length, of 90mm or 3.5-inch stormwater pipe. Now I've cut it at that length so it's standing proud of the top of the grow bed by about 1 centimetre or just 1/2 inch. That gives you a bit of extra room to take the lid on and off when you need to inspect the bell siphon. Something I like to add onto the base of the media guards of these bell siphons is an end cap with some holes drilled in the base and a couple of 316 stainless steel screws zapped through. What that does is it stops the shroud from being lifted out, allowing media to get into the bell siphon workings and just gumming it all up. For this media shroud, I'm drilling a series of holes all around it, and what that will do is allow water to pass through into the bell siphon, but it will keep the media out so it doesn't gum up the works. To begin with, what I've done is drilled a series of pilot holes just in a rough pattern, and then I've come back through and I've finished them off with an 8mm or 5/16 drill bit. The 8mm hole is small enough that it'll stop any of the small bits of clay passing through, but still allow a nice amount of water to come through and activate the siphon. So after all the 8mm holes were drilled into the shroud and the end cap, I've just come around with the utility knife and just cleaned up any sharp edges or any loose burrs that are around the edge of the cut. Then I flipped the whole unit over so the end cap's facing up. I've taken a 29mm or 1 1/8 inch hole saw and just run that through the bottom after I've drilled in a little pilot hole. Through this hole we're going to be placing a bulkhead fitting or a water tank fitting, which will take the water from the siphon back into the fish tank below. So on top of my shrouds, I like to pop on an end cap just to stop any debris getting in there and fouling up the works. Now this one fits on fairly loosely, but different brand pipes you might find that the lid sticks. On another bell siphon I've built, what I've done is I've cut out little sections on the side of this end cap here, and that just makes it a little bit looser and it fits on a lot easier. What you don't want is the cap to be stuck on there and very hard for you to pull off. So for the install, we start with the shroud, and what we're going to do is pop a rubber washer just down around the hole. Then we're going to pop down our shroud base plate, just making sure that one of the holes is pointing towards the middle, so it'll be easy to get the screw in. Then another washer, then in goes the tank fitting, and then on the underside we're just going to screw up the nut. Just do him up hand tight. So next I like to screw on a faucet elbow or a faucet socket on the tail end of the tank fitting. The reason being is when you tighten it up, you can actually undo the nut that holds this in position, and it's a lot easier to tighten up now than when the grow bed's full of media and you may loosen it off and cause all sorts of issues. This faucet elbow is a great one if you can find it. Our large hardware chains don't stock them anymore, so I bought this from a plumbing supply. Alternatively, you can get a faucet socket. What this is a threaded fitting to go onto the tank fitting, and then on the other side you can just push on a normal slip 20mm or 3/4 inch elbow. The reason you want an elbow at the end here is the water will come down here, get a little bit of a resistance to it that will help create the water lock in the bell siphon and help the bell siphon to initiate. So on this build today, I'm just going to use this little jobby here just because it looks nice and neat. So we'll get down there and we'll screw him in. I'm not using any Teflon plumbing tape on these fittings, mainly because the seal is so tight I don't think it will ever leak. Just make sure that the tank fitting is all nice and tight still. Now into that I'm just going to push a small section of pipe with a 90-degree elbow, and that will help just redirect the water down onto the surface of the fish tank. There we go. So now onto the standpipe for the bell. What we've got here is a little valve socket. It's just going to screw straight into the tank fitting like such. And then we need a section of pipe to act as a standpipe. And on the very top of that, what we're going to do is pop on a 25mm to 20mm reducer. What that does is it allows a greater volume of water to enter over the top of the standpipe, create a water lock in there and initiate your siphons a lot easier. Now what I like to do is have the top
That's
of the
so true,
standpipe
Mark.
roughly
Very
about
true.
50 millimeters from the top of the grow bed. What that means is that will be as far as the water comes up, and it allows for about 20 to 25 mil of dry media above the top of the water line in the bed when it's full, and also gives you a bit of a lip just to stop the media from falling out. So I've already measured up the standpipe for this one, and I need to cut it off at roughly 75 mil. So now that little standpipe just gets pushed into there, and the reducer on top. Over the top of the standpipe we need a bell. This is actually the one from the other barrel system I've made up. It's a section of 50 millimeter or 2-inch drain pipe with a couple of legs cut out. This just allows water into the standpipe, and a very tight fitting end cap on there. And all that does is sit over the top there. For this build though, I've made one out of a clear plastic drink bottle just to keep it a little bit cheaper, less parts you have to buy. And also too, it looks groovy to see the siphon initiate and then break. To make the little clear bell, it was very easy. I took a 50 millimeter or 2-inch diameter drink bottle, measured down roughly 170 mils, which is around about 6.5 inches, popped a series of dots around the bottle itself, and then cut off the top using my utility knife. And then in 3 positions around that cut edge, I marked up roughly 1/2 inch or 15 millimeters, drew a couple of lines across, and then cut out the 3 sections. Those 3 sections will allow water through to the standpipe and allow the bed to drain. So now I'm just going to pop the shroud in there. Just make sure these little marks down here line up. That means the screw will go through neatly. Pop the screw in, pop the bell in, and we're all ready to go. So I'm just going to clean out the clay in this large tub of water, give it a bit of a swish around just to remove any dust particles from it that could wreak havoc with the fish's gills. Then I'm just going to ladle it straight into the grow bed using an old sieve with the handle that's broken off. If you don't have something like that you can use, drill a couple of holes in the base of an old ice cream container or some other sort of plastic container, and they make a perfect sieve for something like this. If you're going to use rock, it does pay to give it a bit of a clean first as well, and I'd also probably give it a bit of a vinegar test just to see if it's going to release any carbonates into the water. You can check out that clip up there or in the description just to see how I've done that previously. So there you go folks, she came together really well, looking rather schmicko there next to her sister. The siphon's just fired, so I think I've pretty much got that all sorted out. So what we might do is we might pop down underneath, and I'll show you how you can adjust the flow rates to get your siphon firing correctly. So here's a bit of a look at the fish tank. As you can see, first off, the water's pretty clear. You can see the pump down there. There's still a little bit of dust down there, but yeah, that should settle within a couple of days. I have made one alteration to the plumbing on this side over here. I've added a small section of hose and a 90-degree angle, mainly because I sort of miscalculated at the back there, and some of the water was splashing out that access port, so I thought it better to redirect it down the side. So you can see there's water coming out of that valve over the back there. That's because if I had it totally closed off, there'd be far too much water running up to the grow bed, and the bell siphon would initiate and never break. Conversely, if I didn't have enough water running up into the grow bed, you get a little trickle over the top of the standpipe. It just keeps running out through the drain down the bottom here and never actually initiate. So all you need to do is just play around with that valve setting, just turn it on and off just a little bit at a time, and you should be able to have the bell siphon initiating and breaking within about 15 to 20 minutes. And the siphon is initiated. And there's the burp, and she's done. So that took 1 15 seconds from the first dribble till the burp on the siphon. So that's not too bad at all. So once you've got the bell siphon firing and you're pretty happy with the way it's going, you can pop some plants straight into the system. I've got a little clip up there you can suss out, just showing you a bit of a shortcut of how I like to plant plants out in our larger aquaponics system. You could probably use it here as well. Once those plants are in though, it does pay to give them a little bit of nutrients just to help kick them off. What I like to do is just add a little bit of seaweed solution. You don't need much in a system this size. Probably about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon would be more than you need to add some nutrients in there for some young seedlings. I actually use a little kelp powder concentrate, so pretty much all I'd add, only about 1/4 teaspoon of that in there. It will discolour the water slightly, but it won't harm the fish at all. Speaking of fish, For a system this size, you're pretty much all looking at around about 10 to 12 fish. I actually asked the folks down at the local aquarium, and they recommended no more than 12 for a system this size, goldfish that is. If you haven't kept fish before, it might pay for you to ask them just, how to release goldfish into a system like this. I've got a clip up there on how we've done it in larger aquaculture and aquaponic systems, but yeah, just with goldfish, you might as well ask the experts while you're there buying the fish. Now, some people have said that the goldfish food doesn't have enough crude protein in it to run a system like this. I actually asked the guys down there at the aquarium how much protein was in their feeds, and most of them came in around about between 30 to 40%, which is roughly the same amount as commercial feeds as well that we use for our silver perch and jade perch in those large tanks up there. So as for nutrients going into the system, goldfish will run something like this no problem whatsoever. So as you can see, it's a pretty easy little system to build. You can probably knock it together in half a day to a day, depending on if you've got to run around and buy tools and bits and pieces you forgot, like myself. If you're interested in a slightly larger version of this, I've posted a chop and flip IBC build clip. You can check that out up there. That's using one of those large 1,000 litre or 250 gallon cage tanks that you see floating around. So if you enjoyed the clip and you're into backyard farming and aquaponics and whatnot.
Okay, so I've actually built one of those, and I gave it away to some people that needed it more than I did. But they're actually pretty fun. They're pretty fun things to build. I actually should build another one day. I did mine a little different, where he was using the aquarium bulk, that metal nut. We actually did something a little different. I actually like that idea quite a bit better.
Yeah, it's pretty damn cool. My only concern, well, my only comment would be grow fish that you can eat. You can't eat goldfish.
Yeah, that idea.
In that system, it's such a good system. You could probably keep trout in there, right?
You could probably keep one or two. That's part of the problem with that system, is just how small it is. It would be very a very few fish would be kept. Honestly, what might actually be better in a system like that might actually be trying to keep crabs, or growing, if there's any other type of edible aquatic thing to eat, might be good to get in there.
Well, catfish.
You could probably, catfish would probably do well in that system as well. So, but no, that's a I don't know. I really like that. It's simple. That's just a good way. That's that plan right there, which I'll put a link to in the Discord and other things like that. I have a step-by-step build of this, but I'll link this video because this video was really good as a nice step-by-step. So I'll put a link to that in the Discord as well. I'll post. There is for those that might be interested in the Discord. There you guys go. So the next thing I want is, he had one other video. I know we're just picking on him today, and by the way, I'll put a link to, since he has a really nice playlist, I'll put a link to what he is doing as well for those that maybe don't want to join the Discord. There's a link to the channel that we're currently watching. Okay, this one seems
G'day folks, it's Rob here and welcome to our backyard farm.
This one seems like this would be very useful. So what we're going to watch, this is the how much the fish to grow bed ratio. So depending on the size of your tanks compared to the size of your grow bed. That's what this one is about.
In today's clip, we're going to be talking about aquaponics, and more specifically, I'll be answering a question I get a lot, and that is, Rob, how many fish can I throw in this barrel or IBC? Now, it may appear to be a fairly easy question to answer, but it's a little bit more complicated than that if you want to run a stable aquaponic system and not lose any fish along the way. Now, I am talking just to you folks out there who want to set up a backyard aquaponic hobby system using media-based grow beds to grow your family some healthy veggies and fish. There are a few different ways you can tweak the system to make it run more efficiently, and I'll cover a few of those towards the end of the clip and also in future upcoming clips I plan to post to the channel here. If you are a budding aquaponicist and you want to check out some of the clips that I've got in store, all you need to do is hit that little subscribe button down there. Check the little bell icon and you'll be sent a notification whenever one's uploaded. And after this clip is finished, you can hop on over to our channel where you'll find a playlist that goes through a lot of the DIY aquaponics clips that I've already uploaded to the channel.
That thing I just posted in the Discord and in the
now,
chat.
on to answering the question, how many fish can I throw in my system? Well, a lot of folks will recommend using tank volume as your metric as to how many fish you can run. Now, for me, I don't think that's a very good idea, mainly because a lot of these folks miss out the all-important biofiltration aspect when they're talking about tank volume to fish ratio. The best method I think you can use when it comes to calculating how many fish you can run is to base it on the total amount of wet media you have in the grow beds. The reason being is this wet media is effectively a biofilter that will process the ammonia that has been released by the fish. The wet surface of the media in the grow beds is a perfect environment for bacteria to set up colonies, and it's these bacterial colonies that will process the waste from the fish, detoxifying the water and making the nutrients available for the plants. When you delve deeper into aquaponics, you'll hear this surface area of the media called the biological surface area, or BSA. That's basically because the surface of the media provides a home for the bacteria to set up shop so they can oxidize the fish waste. For you folks who aren't quite sure what the bacteria do, there's basically two types of nitrifying bacteria in play here. We have the nitrous ammonas, which will convert the ammonia, which is toxic to the fish, into nitrite. Now, the nitrite is also toxic to the fish, but that's fine because a second group of bacteria, Nitrobacter, will convert the nitrite into plant available nitrate, which is also not toxic to fish in the level seen in a sensibly stocked backyard aquaponics system. Just quickly, both these forms of bacteria are ever present around us in the atmosphere. As long as you set up the right conditions, a little bit of ammonia in the system, nice damp media for them to set up their colonies, they'll come along and happily set up shop for you without you having to raise a finger. That's basically called cycling a system, which is a whole other clip, and we're not going to get into it just here. Just to let you know too, this equation has a little bit of wriggle room, so to speak, built into it. So don't be too worried if my metric to imperial conversions aren't dead on, or if I haven't taken into account there's rounded corners on the grow beds when we work out the equation. There's more than enough slack there to allow for those things. Now on to the equation. The first thing we got to work out is how much space we have available. Primarily, how much space do we have available for the hydroponic or the grow bed side of the aquaponic system. Now, for an example, we'll use our original IBC based system. I worked out that I had enough room for 3 grow beds with enough space to pop a sump tank underneath one of them, an IBC to use as a fish tank. I also had a bit of space left over for the later addition of filters. Now we know that we've got 3 IBC grow beds to work with, we can work out how much wet media we will have in total volume. Now when I say wet media, what I mean is any media that is underwater at any time during a flood and drain cycle of a grow bed or in a constant flooded grow bed. The reason being is the bacteria need wet media to be able to colonize. So on to the math side. First off, we need to work out how much volume we're playing with in each bed. We'll work out the volume of one bed and then we'll multiply it by 3. So to work out the volume is a very easy sum. We multiply the length of the grow bed by the width of the grow bed by the height of the grow bed. Now with these grow beds here, they're 120 centimeters long, they're 100 centimeters wide and roughly 30 centimeters tall, which is roughly 47 1/4 inches long, 39.4 inches wide and 11.8 inches high for you folks over in the States. So before we work out the volume of wet media, we need to actually remove some of the height from the grow bed. The reason being is we need to allow for 2.5 centimeters or an inch worth of lip to stop the media falling out of the grow bed. We're also going to allow for another 2.5 centimeters or inch of dry media on top of the wet media. The reason being is the wet media, if exposed to UV light, will grow algae, which can cause a problem. Basically, it's robbing nutrients from the system for a start. So what we need to do is remove 5 centimeters or 2 inches in total from the height of the grow bed. So first off, we'll do the sum in metric. Removing the 50 mil now gives us a grow bed that's 120 centimeters long, 100 centimeters wide, and 25 centimeters high, which gives us 300,000 cubic centimeters. To convert 300,000 cubic centimeters into litres, you divide that by 1,000 because there's 1,000 cubic centimeters in 1 litre. That gives us a total wet media volume of 300 litres. Now for you folks in the States, the dimensions are 47.25 inches long, 39.4 wide, and only 9.8 inches high, giving us roughly 18,244 cubic inches. Now there's 231 cubic inches in a gallon, so if we divide the 18,244 by the 231, we get roughly 79 gallons of wet media per grow bed. So now we know the wet media volume in a single bed, we can work out how many fish that bed can sustain. Now, just quickly, when we are talking media, we're talking aquaponics suitable media. Things like rock that is anywhere from 20 to 25 millimeters or 3/4 to an inch in size, with no carbonates in it, volcanic rock known as scoria here in Australia, expanded shale, and also the clay that we like to grow in our systems here. So the rule of thumb states that for every 25 litres of wet media we have in the grow bed, which is 6.6 gallons, that's enough biofiltration to handle the waste from one fish we want to grow out to 500 grams or just over 1 pound in size. So getting back to our equation, there is 300 litres in the grow bed, so we divide that by 25 and it comes to the total of 12 fish that one of these grow beds can process the waste from, so they can happily grow out to harvest size. The same again for gallons. We divide 79 by 6.6 and we get roughly the same amount, 12 fish that we can grow out in a grow bed this size. So that means with this 3-bed system, as in the example, we can stock 36 fish that we want to grow out to 500 grams or around about a pound in size. Now, as I said before, this equation does have a little bit of wriggle room in it. One example where that can come in handy is if you have a plant with a large root mass growing in a grow bed that is slowing down the flow of water and eventually starts to collect solids. If left unchecked, you could end up with an anaerobic zone down in there where those solids are slowly decomposing, and they could potentially lead to a dangerous spike in ammonia and nitrite, which could end up costing you some, if not all, of your fish. One way you can remove the problem of solids making it to the grow beds in the first place is to set up a solids filter between the fish tank and the grow bed itself. Now, when it comes to tanks, the rule of thumb I like to follow is stocking one fish I want to grow out to 500 grams or a pound in 20 litres of water or 5.5 gallons. So that basically means in an IBC system, no more fish than 50 in there at any one time. Now, to tell you the truth, I do think it's easier just to stick with the 36 fish in there to begin with. Later on, if you want to add extra grow beds, by all means add the extra grow beds and stock more than 36 in the tank. But for your first crack, I'd pretty much will leave it at around about the 36 fish mark. So there you go, folks. I do hope that this has helped you work out how many fish you can throw in that IBC or barrel in your aquaponics system. Just before we go, I need to send out a quick thank you and good day to the marvelous folks over on Patreon.
Okay, so that was so that's pretty cool. That's quite a few fish. Actually, that was more fish than I had actually originally thought it was going to be. So
I'm not surprised at all how many fish you can keep in it. That's why I was saying you could keep trout in something like that. because I completely agree with what he said to begin with. It's got nothing to
G'day,
do
folks.
with
It's Rob.
the volume of water that you've got. It's just how good your filter is. You know, it's still a custom today in parts of Asia, and they did it for thousands of years. They keep a large carp in the sink that's used by the family, and there's a huge fish that just lives its entire life. Maybe it lives for 50 years, and it just lives in the family bowl, and it's just got, it's almost as big as the bowl is, and it just lives in there. But because the water's such good quality, it can do it.
No, that makes sense.
It's not, fish don't need space; they just need quality water.
No, that's cool. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And like some of the aquaponic builds, and just the fact that, like we've been talking many times about how, everybody's talking about trying to feed the world and making sure there's enough food for everyone and things of that sort. In reality, what we're discovering tonight, I mean, some of us have already known this, but what maybe some other people out there are discovering tonight is the fact that the truth is it's really just knowing how to filter water. Like filtering water is kind of the key to feeding the world. Cycling the water.
What he's
Yeah.
doing is he's got a cycle. He's got the ammonia to nitrate to nitrite to nitrate, and then he's got multiple things that are working together. So he's got nature that he's able to harness, is what he's done. He's built a nature system that he can tap into.
Yep. And I mean, and look, that's with some of the smaller systems like the one we just watched, the little blue barrel system, setting up a few of those, or some of the bigger systems, or even just old fish aquariums, or building them out of cement blocks. There's lots of ways to build ponds depending on where you live and what access of resources that you have. And, fish are pretty much abundant, especially if you can get a fish that breeds very well. Eating fish and veg is it's a good diet. It's what humans have grown up on eating. Yeah, some of us in the colder regions, there's going to be more, we're going to have to spend a little bit more on a few other things, but, he's in Oz and other people in tropical regions, as long as you have water, we can absolutely feed everyone. So when you keep hearing all this is all of you out there that keep hearing. It doesn't matter, where you're coming from. If you're coming from the fact that, we're overpopulated and there's not enough food on the planet to feed everyone, well, this just proves that we can do it. And if you're coming from the other side, that they're trying to control all the food, and they're trying to GMO and make all the food not healthy for you to eat, well, we just showed an affordable way that you could put one of these in your garage, or in your basement, or in a spare room, or in something small, and you could grow your own veg and fish. So it's technology like this. And this is just one of the wonderful technologies out there. This is just a simple, aquaponic growing fish and veg. And just imagine, as we start modularizing and start educating people and start teaching them the step by step, with the farming skills that our forefathers had, and the technology that we have, and the technology that will be coming in the future, it's, things are pretty awesome right now. We just, they want you to be angry at the bad people. They want us to be shaking our fists, and they want us to be mad about whatever silliness is going on in the world right now. They want us to, they want us to hate another group, instead of focusing right now on making your own veg and making your own fish. And these are just two of the things. In the future, some of the other episodes we're going to talk more about is, we're going to talk about, why I raise bees, and we're going to talk about, just little things that people are doing out there. Now, I'm not doing all of this. I am more of an educator than I am, getting my hands dirty, even though I have done some of these and do need to have more of them on hand. But these are also things that all of you have the potential of being able to do. So that's what's also so great, is none of this costs a lot of money. And there's even more and more tactics. If money is a big issue, there are even ways to cut down the cost of all of these different projects. So it's just where we're going. So the next thing, we're gonna watch another video. This is the video that we're gonna be watching now is this guy is one of my heroes. So his name is Sepulter. He is honestly he was doing permaculture before permaculture anybody knew what permaculture is. He lives in the Alps, and he has made ponds, and it's just the techniques and such that he does is just absolutely amazing. The stuff that the experiments that he's done, and the stuff that he's done on his property. He actually has he has places on his property. Now remember, he is in Austria is where the Alps are, correct? Am I correct with that? Yeah.
Well, on France and.
Yeah. Okay, but all throughout that area. Anyways, he's able to grow the way he's got some microclimate set up, because he knew how to bounce the sun and use thermal mass, which is just hitting rocks and things of that sort, and how to get microenvironments. He's able to grow certain types of citrus even in places like that. So he's just, yeah. I mean, what's crazy is he's someone that most of you have probably never heard the name, but is probably doing more to push forward the growth of food and the growth of sustainability and things of that sort than anybody you've ever heard. The one of the things, and I'm gonna vent here for a minute. One of the things that bothers me is I have a lot of my lefty friends, and I even have a lot of my friends on the right as well, that talk about how we need the government to either get out of our way or to get in our way and help us do things. But in reality, if you just go and you start doing things, maybe you have to convince your neighbor if you're going to do something that's going to be loud and messy. But generally, most anything that you can do, you can just sweet talk your way into doing it. If you live in an area with HOAs, then you figure out how to dance around the HOAs, and you grow food in your yard that still looks pretty and falls into that rule. It's the thing that bothers me about people today is not only have we got physically lazy, but we've also got mentally lazy. People don't want to find that loophole. They just want to say, oh, well, I can't do it, so it's the HOA's fault on the reason why I can't do XYZ, so I'm not even going to bother trying. Or, oh, the government says it's not going to do this, or, oh, Alex Jones said the government's going to come, take all of my animals, and when the truth be told, that's just being a slacker and not going out and doing it. And don't get me wrong, I'm actually guilty. I can come up with the plenty of excuses forever about why I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. But at some particular point, coming up with the excuses and also being angry is just kind of silly. So, anyways, we're gonna watch a little bit of this video. We're gonna jump back and forth and pause it from time to time, and I'll address some of the things. So.
Water, the foundation on which all life depends. A precious but much abused resource. Ironically, it is also underutilized. In agriculture, its potential goes way beyond irrigation. Lungau, Austria. For 40 years, the Holzers have farmed 45 hectares of mountainside. Sepp also knew that for farmers, water had a wider role to play than just irrigation. He realized it could complement his own permaculture methods. The result? A delightful landscape of interwoven terraces and ponds, and a healthy income.
Ursprünglich habe ich ja das Wasser gekauft von den Nachbarn, zugeleitet, da war ja nur eine kleine Quelle da.
Originally, I bought water for my land from the neighbors. I had only a small well on my own land, so I piped water here. I bought about 8 kilometers of pipes. I tapped off the well and channeled the water here. Then I built ponds and water gardens. And after observing for a while, you start to see the possibilities.
Biotope, Wassergärten. Ja, und im Laufe der Zeit kommt man eben drauf, durch das genaue Beobachten, was sich daraus alles machen lässt.
Fish ponds on a mountain farm, an unusual sight at these altitudes. Sepp created more than 70 ponds and wetland areas covering about 3 hectares. But what gave this mountain farmer the idea of making fish ponds up at 1500 meters?
Wie ich meinen ersten Fisch gesehen habe, das war in der 2. Klasse Volksschule.
When I saw my first fish, I was in second year at elementary school. It was a trout. I was so excited. I never saw anything so beautiful before.
Und das hat mich so fasziniert.
So then, for a few weeks, I kept some fish in the trough in front of my house. And later, with my bare hands, I dug my own pond.
Den ersten Fischteich gegraben mit den Händen. Und wenn du das mit den Händen machst, als Kind mit 7, 8 Jahren.
And when you do this with your own hands, as a 7-year-old kid, you get a completely different relationship to water, animals and plants.
So I do want to add, if none of you have ever got your hands into dirt and you've just dug a pond and you've never done that, that is so true. Like, one of my favorite things to do still to this day is to redirect water with, digging ditches or digging ponds and trying to figure out how to lay it out properly. There's just something really amazing. And if some of you've never had that opportunity, it doesn't matter how old you are. I definitely say get out there, get your hands dirty, even in your own backyard, if you can. Dig a hole, and there's some awesome sealing techniques, and try to see how long you can get it to hold water. And I mean, maybe you might start off just raising, mosquitoes for a while, but there's also that will also then, if you have enough mosquitoes, it'll then attract other things in. You'll get dragonflies, and you'll get lots of other stuff. And then if you can hold water long enough and it has a nice exchange, then there's things like you could add seasonal goldfish and such like that. So.
Because you do it with your own hands, you experience new things all the time. You explore it, and then you start looking for a well and start digging.
Und dann fängst du an zu suchen. Und so siehst du dann, wo die Quelle herauskommt, grabst nach. Und dann, wie ich den Hof übernommen habe, im Jahr 62, da habe ich dann einen größeren Umfang dann.
As a child, I had good experience of making plant gardens and ponds, so when I took over the land in 62, I thought that's just what I'll do, but on a bigger scale. And that's why I made all these plant gardens and ponds.
Und so hat sich das entwickelt, dass jetzt da die ganzen Teiche eben entstanden sind.
When he creates a new pond, Sepp avoids the use of artificial lining. He simply compacts the earth to retain the water.
Das muss man durchrütteln, also mit dem Bagger das ganze Material, den Lehm und das, alles was ist, richtig durchkneten, metertief.
You have to shake all the material with a digger, shake and squash all the earth and clay, meters deep, so that no loose earth remains, because loose earth erodes easily. But if you shake it well, it will settle and compact. You can observe this in nature. Pigs, for example, they wallow. They roll around in the earth and mud. They notice it's wet here, and by wallowing they compact the earth. It becomes solid, and then you have a small pond. And in a similar way, only bigger, I use the digger. It's the same method. After I have ploughed up the earth, I use the dredge bucket to apply pressure. It sinks through the water, compacting the earth.
In diesen Teichen und Seen sind ja die Fische bunt gemischt.
In these ponds and lakes, the fish are mixed in a colourful way, just like my plants. There are pike, real big ones, 20 to 30 kilos, and feeding fish, such as carp and many more.
Welse sind auch schon gefangen worden. Und auch Futterfische, also Kleinfische, Elritzen, Karauschen, Karpfen und so weiter. Ich habe da in den Teichen 4-5 Meter tief mit Wurzelstöcke und Steine.
In a number of places in the ponds, I put roots and stones, about 4 to 5 meters deep. It is important that the fish can hide, so they are not being chased all the time. The predator fish can't enter such a tangle of roots, so the small fry feel safe. If they are being followed all the time, they would either die of stress or be eaten.
Dann erstens ist dieser Stress, den vertragen sie nicht und gehen auch so kaputt oder werden gefressen. Der große Fisch, der Raubfisch, der muss durch
The big fish, the predator, has to get through these roots, but the small ones are faster. They can hide, and the big ones can't eat them all. If he could, the pond would be empty in no time. And then the big fish would die because there's no food left. The whole thing would break down, and I would have to feed them all. But if you have as many ponds as I do, it would take a whole day for one person to feed all the fish. That's far too much work and expensive too.
Wenn du die Fische füttern musst, ist ja Mordsarbeitsaufwand, dann kostet auch das Futter was.
Instead of costing him money, the fish earn Sepp a healthy income. Economically, his pisciculture is highly successful. Apart from providing for his own needs, the fish are very popular with local customers.
Das ist die letzte Station vor der Küche. Da drin sind jetzt.
This is the last stop before the kitchen. There are carp, trout, pike and other fish. I keep them in this tank.
Was ich da miteinander in die Gemeinschaft reingebe und dass die so ruhig sind, wie man zuerst gesehen hat. Das ist ganz leicht gemacht. Das ist nur ein kleines Hindernis. Dieser Wurzelstock mit dem Moos beruhigt die Fische, sodass sie Raubfisch und
This tree root and moss provides refuge. It keeps them calm and unstressed, so predator and prey can live together. If this tree root was not here, they would swim around frantically.
Wenn der nicht drin ist, dann werden die Fische nervös, dann flitzen sie herum.
Unlike many fish farms, Sepp doesn't serve his fish processed food. Nature provides its own self-service restaurant, organic of course. To do this, he has to balance the food chain so it is self-sustaining. Algae, insects, newts, small fish and large fish. No one goes hungry, and his fine trout end up on many a good cook's dining table. The wetland areas are designed to provide just enough refuge for the smaller creatures to sustain their numbers whilst feeding the larger fish.
Flachstellen, Wurzelstöcke, Gräben. Da drin vermehrt sich sehr stark.
Flat zones, tree roots, ditches. That's where the feeding animals propagate well. So I don't have to feed the fish. Any overcrowding of these flat zones will be dispersed in the next pond. Frogs and newts spawn well here. They migrate from the ponds, regulating the population there. Then they return and are eaten by the trout and pike.
Die ganze Population und gehen dann wieder rund und dick in den Teich rein und werden dann von der Forelle oder vom Hecht gefressen. Nicht? Und dann leitet das Wasser ja in Grabensystemen so in Schlangenform.
The water channel meanders about, first of all to provide humidity, and because I don't want to have to walk for an hour to the next trough, neither does the frog.
Ich will ja auch nicht eine Stunde zum Brunnen laufen, zum Brunnendruck gehen, zum Wasser trinken. Und der Frosch auch nicht.
The result? An unusually high population of amphibia. In fact, a recent audit of flora and fauna in the county of Salzburg has shown that the Chromatohoph plays a very positive role in the protection of rare animal and plant species in the region, an achievement in which Sepp takes great pride. All the wetlands and ponds are interconnected in this large water complex. Sepp can even regulate the pond's temperatures through the pipes and water runoffs. he can increase or reduce the water supply, warmer water from the flat zones and cooler water from the deeper ponds. The stones also help to raise the pond's temperature.
Die Steine werden von der Sonne erwärmt, geben die Temperatur aufs Wasser ab. Und wenn ich jetzt einen geringen Wasserzulauf...
The stones transfer the sun's heat to the water. So when I let only a little water run into a pond, and when there are many flat zones with stones and roots, the water warms up. It can reach the outside temperature, sometimes 25 degrees, up here on the mountain.
Hier auf der Alm herum mit dem Wasser.
Centrally heated ponds. The heat of the stones increases evaporation and humidity. It creates a microclimate. In winter too, the heat from the rocks has a positive effect.
Im Winter, wenn der Wasserzulauf geringer ist und eine hohe Schneedecke ist und das Eis drauf ist,
in winter, there is little water coming in and a lot of snow and ice on the surface. The sun melts the ice around the stone. Then there is an exchange of gas produced by the plants, fish shells and crab in the water.
Produzieren, indem das eine Luftblasen einzieht. Und das habe ich öfters beobachtet. Und deswegen bin ich auch für so viel Steine und so viel Wurzelsteck auf das gekommen.
I have observed this many times. When the sun rises in the morning, it doesn't take long and you hear this slurping noise.
Was war das?
And you see, aha, next to the wooden stick, a bubble of air has been sucked in. The sun's heat only has to melt 1 millimeter of ice. That's enough. The air is sucked in, the exchange of gas happens, and the water takes up the oxygen.
Sauerstoffblase ist wieder drin.
In these conditions, even exotic fish like koi, Japanese carp, can live in Sepp's ponds. Water plants, which need a lot of warmth, enjoy the mild temperatures in their local ecosystem. The special microclimate up here is created by the careful location of the ponds in the landscape.
Wenn man das hier so sieht, ist der Teich da so hereingebaut. Dahinter
Look at this
ist der
pond. It is built into the hill. Behind there is the hill. There are the pine trees. They protect it and conserve the warmth. If I put a pond in an exposed position, what will happen is that the wind will take away the humidity and the warmth. It will cool the earth and the water, and half of the things won't grow in the pond anymore. So I try to position the pond against the wind and use the sun's heat as far as possible.
Also möglichst verdrehen, möglichst gegen den Wind ausrichten und bestmöglich die Sonne nützen. Dass man so Art
I try to create sun traps. The sun shines onto the water, which reflects the heat, and so I have a double benefit, humidity and warmth.
Vom Wasser und ich habe die Wärme.
The terraces and ponds catch the sun. Reflected by the water, it heats the neighbouring hillside. This heat trap encourages excellent growth from the terraces.
Brunnen als Trinkwasser.
Water, drinking water. To have such a water trough, to sit down, listen to the water, these things were so beautiful up on the mountain. That inspired me to create lots of water troughs all over my land. Wooden troughs to sit down by and drink fresh water.
Abständen auf sein Grund und Boden überall ein Trinkwasser zur Verfügung hat, einen schönen Brunnen hat aus Holz dass man sich dort hinsetzen kann und ein frisches Wasser trinken kann.
Holzer pumps up drinking water with his old pumping system. He doesn't need the electricity company.
Also diese Wasserpumpe, Witter, das ist das Witter.
This is a widder water pump. The widder is an old system. It works with pond water from the crab ponds and pumps up pure drinking water through a pipe to the top. The ratio is about 1 to 10. For 1 liter of drinking water, it needs 10 liters from the crab pond.
Und braucht zum Arbeiten 10 Liter Wasser aus dem Krebsteil. Mit den Witter
With this pump, you could, for example, pump up beer with the help of cow's piss. Because the pipes are not connected, one has nothing to do with the other.
Wenn man separat zuleitet. Wäre möglich, weil das eine mit dem anderen nichts zu tun hat.
Water is the Chromatohoff's primary source of power. Sepp uses water to produce green electricity. His water system generates its own power supply, producing enough electricity for the whole farm.
Das E-Werk habe ich bereits 20 Jahre. Das ist die Verbindung.
I have had this generator for more than 20 years. It draws power from the channels that connect the fish ponds. The water passes the first group of ponds. From there it is connected to the second group down here. Electricity is produced. At the same time, the water absorbs the oxygen going through this Pelton turbine and then to the next group of ponds and the next generator. Providing his own electricity is one example of Sepp's self-sufficiency. Applying his permaculture philosophy to all aspects of running his farm enables him to be almost independent of outside support. Sepp continuously improves his water system. Here he is laying pipes to connect a new pond and another generator. Being a practical man, he is not against using a JCB or other heavy equipment, but only if it is the most efficient way of doing a job. The scar on his landscape will soon disappear. Sepp is also a great innovator. He's always coming up with new ideas, especially in the way he uses water.
Hier heroben da wird dann ein Biotop.
Up here, I will build a water landscape. I have different water pipes, one with 15 bar pressure, one with 26 bar, and one with 40 bar. That's 400 meters difference in altitude from the top to the bottom of my land.
Der Höhenunterschied von der Alm bis hier runter und die Leitung kann man verbinden von oben bis hier hin.
And here I'm planning to prolong the growing season by 2 months, one in spring, one in autumn, by high-pressure water spraying. The water is sprayed on the plants so the frost won't damage them.
Dass sich der Frost nicht anlegt.
Sepp has a great deal of experience in creating new permaculture and water landscapes. He always terraces new land for planting.
Die Terrassierung dieser Flächen ist wichtig, damit das die Bodenerosion gestoppt wird.
Terracing these pastures is important. It stops soil erosion and stores humidity. Like this, it's possible to keep all the nutrients. If you have a steep hill without terraces and there's heavy rain, the water rushes down and washes out the nutrients. and then half of the stuff won't grow. Water is life, water is important. You have to keep it in the mountain.
Wasser ist Leben, Wasser ist so wichtig, das muss man am Berg halten. Müssen keine Bäche fließen, dass man Wasser hat. Man kann Wasser zuleiten.
You don't need big streams to have water. You can channel water by very small changes in the landscape, by making basins. You don't have to dig a lot. You just press down the earth with the dredge bucket a bit, so that you get a ditch.
Dass sich so wie eine Rinne bildet. Dass bei einem Niederschlag, wenn das Gelände es zulässt, also nehmen wir jetzt an.
Imagine you have a basin here and one the other side of the hill. The water will run off here and there, and I just have to channel the water down to the basin, and there I make a pond. I compact it and I channel the water in a natural way. So I will collect the rainwater coming from the hill.
Aus diesem ganz natürlichen Geländeformung zum Teich. Und das Niederschlag, das Wasser, das Überschüssige, sammle ich dort in diesen Teich. Ich mache das bei den Rückhaltebecken so. Also hier.
On each terrace I have such a humus basin. That's what I call them. I collect the water coming off the hill, that's snow water, heavy rain and so on. It is collected in these basins, and when there's too much, it will overflow into the raised beds.
Wird das Wasser gesammelt, und wenn es ganz
And these raised beds have a capillary action. They take in the water and give it off again when there is too much.
Die Hügelbeete, die haben ja eine Kapillarwirkung und die nehmen das auf oder geben das wieder ab, wenn es zu viel ist. Das Wasser hat die Aufgabe, dass die Kürbisse, Gurken und alle
The
anderen
function
Pflanzen
of the water is to supply the pumpkins and all the other plants with moisture. I have made a hollow here especially to collect rainwater. It gets sucked up into the hill and is kept there for a longer time, until the next rain comes. And the pumpkins, which need a lot of water, are supplied naturally.
Hügel dann auf und hält die Feuchtigkeit über längere Zeit und dann kommt ja wieder der Regen. Und so reguliert sich das so, die Kürbisse, die was ja und Gurken, was ja sehr viel Wasser brauchen, so werden die mit Wasser versorgt, von Natur aus.
That's why Sepp doesn't irrigate his plants. He prefers nature to do it for him. He doesn't think much of irrigation.
Wenn ich bewässer, muss ich auch düngen, weil ich durch das Bewässern
If I irrigate, I have to fertilize too. Irrigation washes out the soil's nutrients. The nitrogen evaporates and all the other nutrients are washed into the groundwater, where I don't want them. The plant is left without nutrients. Then I have to feed nutrients again, and then I have to irrigate again. That's a vicious circle, and it costs a lot of money too.
Und das ist ein Teufelskreis, das hört dann nicht auf. Das kostet eine Menge Geld. Wenn ich nicht bewässere, schützt sich der Boden
If I
von Natur
don't
aus.
irrigate, the soil protects itself naturally. That is, the plants use less water by folding their leaves a little. They look rather withered, but they open up again when there is dew and rain.
Wenn Tau ist und wenn Regen kommt. Beim Regen
When it rains, the soil is prepared. The humidity increases. The soil opens up, soaking up the rain. That's natural.
in den Boden hineingeht. Nicht? Also das ist ganz natürlich. Und bei einem trockenen Wetter...
But when it's dry, the soil protects itself, so it won't dry out. If I irrigate, I deceive it. It will open up, but then it dries out even faster. Then I have to take care of my plants. They become dependent on me, addicted to me.
Abhängig, süchtig. Wenn der entsprechende Bewuchs ist...
If you have the proper vegetation, doesn't matter whether it's fruit trees or vegetables, you can see that the plants regulate themselves wonderfully. You need plants with deep, medium and flat roots. Deep-rooted plants bring up the moisture and nutrients from 3 or 4 meters down and sweat it out on top.
Schwitzen dies herum aus, beschatten wir die Pflanzen für die flachen.
They shade the plants with flat roots, so they won't dry out. That's the exchange. One plant helps the other. If you work in harmony with the earth, you needn't worry about it being too dry or too wet. You have to listen, and you have to observe. That's the most important thing. That's permaculture, working in harmony with nature. It's very rewarding. Sepp's childhood dream has been realized. His Kramatohof has become a Garden of Eden, a garden whose inhabitants, animal and vegetable, are a team, his team. They work together. The complex ecosystem, with its terraces, raised beds, ponds, and many varieties of trees and plants, stores the water where it's needed. The hill is like a sponge, sucking up water in winter and spring and giving it back the rest of the year. The Lungau is not the only place Sepp practices his permaculture and aquaculture. More and more people ask him to regenerate their land, to create a sustainable, natural landscape. In another part of Austria, Sepp has remodeled a family's estate. He's made a permaculture landscape, and on the hill to the north he has designed a recreational paradise. Ponds have a clear role to play here too.
Und da haben wir einen Baum, den habe ich gesehen, da oben im Wald, beim Besitzer oben. Und den haben wir noch, das war eine Mordsarbeit.
I saw this tree up in the owner's woods and wanted it down here. It was quite difficult to get it down to the pond here. You can walk over it and the children can put a swing on it. It fits well into the whole design of the pond. Before, a builder had made a small round basin with a foil lining. We took all that away and made this big pond in a natural way.
Mit Folie und Vlies, das haben wir alles abgerissen, was ein Jahr vorher gebaut worden ist von einem Baumeister. Alles abgetragen und weg und habe dann einen
We took nearby stones and rocks and designed this pond to be as natural as possible. It should look as if it had always been like that, as if nature had made it that way. That's good design.
Wald haben die antransportiert und haben das möglichst naturnah gestaltet. Dort mit den Wurzelstöcke und die Steine so, als ob das immer schon gewesen wäre. So soll es nämlich ausschauen. Nicht wie hingestellt oder neu gebaut, sondern als ob von Natur aus der schon bestanden hätte. Dann ist richtig. Ich habe freie Hand gehabt, das alles zu gestalten. Und bin jetzt sehr froh, dass die Besitzer...
I had freedom of design, and I'm happy that the owners are satisfied and enthusiastic about the result. Not only with the permaculture, the plants, but with the whole concept: ponds, dry and wet biotopes, barbecue area, this stone table, meditation place. It's a psychotope.
Der Tisch da, Meditationsplatz, das ist ein Psychotop. Das ist was sie auch so leben, was sie auch so erleben.
It's satisfying to see the owners, who are stressed from running a big company, recuperate here. They can spend their holidays on their own land.
Wie sich die da wohlfühlen. Und dass sie jetzt den Urlaub auf seinem eigenen Grundstück machen.
Water can be therapeutic in many ways. To our eyes, it enhances the landscape. To our ears, the sound of flowing water calms and revitalizes mind, body, and soul. An important quality in our increasingly frenetic world. It is not surprising that water, the life giver, is holy in many cultures. For Sepp Holzer, water provides moisture to grow his produce, power to generate his electricity. It provides his drinking water and fish for market as well as his own table. He has shown how the efficient management of water, this most precious resource, can sustain the environment and improve the farmer's livelihood. Learning from his success will safeguard the ability of future farmers to feed the generations to come.
Okay, guys, so I thought that that might be, if you guys have never seen anything about Sepp or anything like that, I thought that you guys might really dig that. Sepp is really cool. Yeah, and thank you so much for the diamond. But yeah, Sepp Halter, one of the
You're welcome,
coolest
buddy.
dudes. Yeah.
That was a pretty cool show. I like that one better than the aquaponics, but
Yeah, just trying to shake it up, just showing some diversity and stuff, like from the technology to that dude pretty much with the exception of using heavy equipment, like he'd been figuring out ways to do some pretty amazing stuff. I mean, they're up in the Alps of Austria. So,
yeah. That was pretty
I
cool.
liked his idea of
One of the
he
ponds kind
doesn't
of
like
reminded me of my
to
pond.
irrigate because
Yeah,
it tricks everything. All the leaves and everything won't know to open and close, and they get addicted to him, and he has to do it, and just
it's a great mindset, yeah. I mean, and I bet there's a couple plants that he might baby and a couple plants he might give a little extra attention to, but in general, in general, you don't want to do that to the bulk of your plant, because like he said earlier with the fish, if he had to feed his fish, that's all he would be doing, is feeding his fish all day long. No, lots of
Yeah, did you see the fish that he had in that tiny little tank? All those trout.
yes.
Yeah, because he knows what he's doing.
Well, he also he also said that those fish are the next stages after they're done with that. They're gonna go. That's kind of where they finish up before they go to market.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they might be in there for a month or so, but yeah. No, but there was a lot of fish in that tank. But then he also explained, part of the reason the fish were in the tank the way they were and why he had the wood and such is so that the fish also don't get stressed out. So, it's just he had figured out he had a bunch of stuff figured out.
Fish like quality of water. They don't care
Yeah.
about space. They're not really bothered about it. They don't get stressed if they're in a small area as long as they've got good water.
Yep, good water, and if they're
Well,
little,
it
a
looked
place to hide.
like there was a lot more in there than just regular fish. It looked like it had frogs, tadpoles, all kinds of different breeds of fish.
Oh yeah,
He
well I
had
mean
the
that
whole thing balanced, didn't he? That was kind of the thing. It was everything was eating everything else just the right speed.
yep,
Just the right balance. Right.
Yep, just the right balance. So then he could also eat what he wanted to eat out of there and sell what he wanted to sell out of there. It's that thing is that once you find that balance, everything's great. It's just we've been tricked with industrial farming and with thinking that we have to spend money to do certain things when in reality nature kind of knows the answer. We just have to find out all the answers with nature and balance it off more perfectly.
All right. Well, but before I completely fall asleep, how are your bees doing?
They're doing good.
I didn't get to follow them at all this week.
I didn't do a video. I didn't do a video this week. I was in North Carolina over the weekend, and then when I was gonna get into and look at them on Monday, the weather just wasn't suitable. I did have to I did have to do an emergency split yesterday that I didn't get a chance to videotape because like they were getting the bees were acting like they were gonna swarm. And and when they're ready to swarm, you have like a few minutes. You don't really have a lot of time, and so like I went and grabbed the smoke. I just went and grabbed the smoker and opened it up, and
do they start making a certain frequency or noise or acting a certain way? Or?
Well, you just start seeing hundreds of bees like right outside the entrance, and if it's not about to rain, because sometimes you'll see hundreds of bees and they'll be flying into the entrance, and that's because like a mile or so away it's getting ready to rain and they're all heading back. But these guys were just kind of like hanging out and swarming around the front of the thing, and just you looked at the beehive and you saw a cloud of bees, and they weren't coming and going. They were just kind of like circling around, and that's like a most of the time that's a pre-swarm sign. That means that something's going on and that you need to be paying attention to.
Does the swarm mean they're looking for a new house, or it means they're looking to sting somebody, or they're looking for trouble, or they're bored, or what?
What a swarm means is it means that the bees, either the queen and the workers, or the workers have decided that they need to move someplace else. They either need to move someplace else because there's too many in this hive, and half of them need to leave, like take the queen with them and leave and start someplace else and let this new hive make a new queen, or there's something wrong with this hive and they all need to leave. So I don't know why these bees were swarming. This was kind of more of a pre-swarm. It was sometimes the queen will do some signs and the hive will do like a practice. They'll see they'll kind of make their who's going to separate, who's going to go with who, and who's going to stay in the hive. So when I got into the hive, they were a little irritated too. Like I was in it for about an hour and a half. I only got stung 4 times, and the only reason I actually got stung is because I dropped a frame. If I wouldn't have dropped a frame, I think I would have been fine. But like I dropped a frame and then they got mad because it was a lot of irritation and such.
Right.
But I mean, like I got stung on the wrist, and you can't even tell anymore. Like I didn't even really swell up or anything. They weren't super mad. They were just really irritated because, well, you know, I dropped a frame. That's annoying. So, but what I did was I was afraid they were gonna swarm. So what I did is I went and found 2 frames full of fresh brood. So that's going to be future bees, and then it had some eggs and larvae that weren't quite capped yet. And so I took 2 frames of those full of nurse bees. So some bees' jobs are just to make sure that the baby bees are doing well. So I took 2 frames of that, and then I took 1 frame of honey, and then I made sure that there was still plenty of brood and such, and then I found the queen, make sure she looked good and everything like that, and then I redid the hive. And everybody was really good today, and then the new split, we'll check that in about 14 days or so. We'll see what's going on with them if they decide that they're going to make a queen. If they don't decide to make a queen, what I can do is I can always integrate them back into that hive or integrate them into another hive, a weaker hive.
So the new split house or whatever it's called, the new split, like, is that being kept in the same location, or did you move it to another area? Or
I usually move it. So if I can't, what I like to do is, if I do a split, I like to move the main hive, and I like to leave the split where the main hive was. That way all of the scavengers come back and they strengthen the split. But I wasn't able to do that in this scenario, so I just took that hive and I put it someplace, and I put it someplace different. If you have your beehives too close, what happens is the bees, they get confused which door to go in, and so they just start going into the door that is the closest to their pattern, and so bees will start like switching houses, and over time, it seems to be to the left. Over time, the bees will migrate to the left, and so the hive on the left will get more bees, because the bees will come in and they'll be like, oh, I'm going to go to this entrance. And so, like, if you have too many hives set up in a row all facing the same direction, the hive on the left will seem to be more popular. So when I do splits, I try to move things around. So if this split is...
So the bees have a problem with the Overton window shifting to the left as well.
Yes, they do. If this
Doc's like I'm going to use that frame joke. You get automatic MGTOW points for dropping frame. That's a reverse psychology joke.
If this all works out well, and this one produces a queen, and the other one I did a week and a half ago produces a queen, then I'll be at 10 hives. And I bought, let's see, I bought 5. Yeah, I bought 5 hives, and I'll be at 10 hives this year. So that's about what I wanted. The idea is I wanted 5. I bought 5 hives, and I wanted 5 queens born on the mountain, because that's how I'm going to be able to do the true, going into fall, that's how I'll be able to do the true experiments, because I'll have the bees born inside the EMF and the bees that were brought into the EMF, and see if that actually makes a difference. And so one will be, when we go through the different things, like part of the reason I'm creating so many hives right now, which is going to completely reduce the amount of honey that I'm going to get for those that are wondering about this. But the reason I'm doing this is because this particular year, the idea is to really hyper focus on what I need to do to get these bees to survive through through the fall and winter. So last year I made sure that they were very well fed with high quality feed. I made sure that they were treated very well with virilamite treatments and such like that. I made sure that everything was good, and all that kind of stuff. So this year, I'm gonna kind of go with something a little bit different tactic. We're gonna put them in different locations, and we're going to build different things around. We're gonna start wrapping different things around them. So I was thinking about, like, I know some of you have asked when I was going to start doing some of the things, and so right now we're still making summer bees. Summer bees don't live very long, so probably starting in September is when I'm going to need to start wrapping the hives and figuring out all the different things, like the one I'm going to put like lead or other stuff around, because starting in late September is when they start making winter bees, and winter bees are actually bred differently. They actually are meant to live all winter long, and their bodies are slightly different. They have actually more fat tissue, and they absorb things differently. And also, when they go out, they don't actually travel as far as the summer bees do. So this particular year, I'm going to try all the experiments that we're going to be trying. I want to try those on the winter bees. So I'm going to do some of the hives are going to be insulated with a variety of different things. Some of the hives are going to be wrapped with the lead. I'm really contemplating. I'm trying to decide if I just want to paint one of the boxes with something like a lead base or an RF resistant paint, but I'm not sure that's going to actually do enough. So, but we'll be those are the things. Anyways, the bees are just all the bees so far are doing well. I did lose the Italians. But they were always seen to be kind of weak in the first place. And I've heard from other people that the Italians don't do as well with the crazy climates that we had. So like just an example, like last night it got to 44 here, or for you, Mark, it got to 6C. So, and usually, but during the day it was 80 or about 26C. So we've had some pretty crazy weather. I also do want to point out, I have to point this out because I think it was one of the funniest things I've seen on the news and on the internets. On the news and on the internets, they had, I wonder if I can, I don't have the map, I'll have to bring it up, but they had this map of the United States. So they had this weather map of the current United States, and they were showing the differences. You know, they were kind of promoting the drought out west. What was yesterday's date? Let me see. If
they
I
were
can
promoting the drought.
Well, they were really talking about the drought and how horrible it was, and how, this is they keep saying silly things like an unprecedented drought, and I kind of thought that the West has been in drought like every so many years, almost like a cycle. But they kept talking.
Basically, they're drying everybody else out, and they're scaring the shit out of everybody else. Like that.
Yeah, but anyways, if you looked at the NOAA map when they released it, they were showing how all this drought was happening through pretty much California and Nevada, and then the rest of the United States was dark blue, which means that we were technically in a cold snap. And I mean, and some crazy records were actually broken yesterday and day before with some cold all throughout the eastern half of the United States. And in the news article, so you're looking at this map where you've got all this cold over on the East Coast, and then you have this little bit of red and drought here on the West Coast, and they're just like, a heat wave and drought is devastating the West. It's global warming is here to stay. And then you look at this and you're just like, yeah, but 70 to 85% of the United States right now is unprecedentedly cold, and they're leading with the hot, and it was just, Yeah, like Lisa just said, she noticed it. She noticed it on the news and all this kind of stuff, and we were hitting like, I mean, seriously, 44 at night for June. That's crazy cold here. Like, I mean, it was cool because we could leave our windows open, and it got colder in our room than it did like if you had the air conditioning on. But it was just fun. It's just funny. Like, they're trying everything that they can now to just play that card, and Mother Nature is kind of laughing at them every step of the way. And something else for those out there that might be wondering about global warming and things of that sort. Like, global warming actually would be a net positive for humans if the planet actually got warmer in some of the ways that they're talking about, and the CO2 level really was rising in the way that they were saying it was. That would just mean we would be able to grow more food. And that means more people would be fed. That means we would be able to counteract any idea of them possibly saying things like, we can't feed enough people. But, they can't have it both ways. So. Oh, a little update, because I haven't done a Feed the Farm yet this week. But an update is so far this year, those that were trying to keep count, I am up to, I think I've planted 35 trees so far this year. Most of them being fruit trees, because a couple videos ago we were talking about those wonderful fruit trees that we got, the pears and the apple trees. So very excited. In a few years we'll have tons of apples and tons of pears. Very excited about that. I did for the first time added some grapes onto the property, so very excited about being able to have more grapes here on the farm as well. And then also picked up some different types of raspberries and blackberries, so especially ones that I've never grown before. And the cool thing about raspberries and blackberries, super easy to propagate, super easy to move around. So.
How about peanuts? You were going to grow some peanuts, right?
I was going to grow some peanuts, and I have yet to be able to find some peanuts.
Yeah, well, this is what we said would happen, if I remember.
No, it is. Lisa, when Lisa went down to Georgia, we totally forgot to ask her to get some peanuts, and when I tried to order peanuts off of the one internet, every place I tried to order peanuts, the seed peanuts were out of stock. So I'm still on the quest to find them, because I do want to grow peanuts, because that is something that would be really cool to grow here, especially since I didn't realize that at one particular point, Virginia, the state right next to me, used to be where we used to grow most of the peanuts in the United States. So that means that they should theoretically grow here. So I will go on my quest. If anybody out there in internet land has access to raw peanuts and can either point me in a direction or wants to mail me some or anything like that, find me, get a hold of me one way.
Or just anyone that's just seen a peanut growing is what we really want to know, because we're not sure if they're real, are we? That's what it is. We don't really know if peanuts are real or not. And just if anybody can just give us a first-hand witness, yes, I am a peanut grower, at least that would be something where I know someone that grows peanuts. Or we don't even have that.
Yeah, we don't.
Peanuts.
Besides Jimmy Carter, the president, the ex-president, we don't know of anybody that actually grows peanuts or anybody that has given us.
Yeah, but he said that he saw UFO, and we know that they're fake. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a good one. So it's all extremely interesting.
I didn't know that your Italian bees had died.
Oh yeah, they when I got them, I noticed that they were not as strong as all the other bees that I got. So I don't know if I got one that just when I did actually find the queen, so I knew they did have a queen when I moved them to the other box, but they just never seemed to do as well as all the other ones that I have. So that was the one that I lost, because this year I bought the blue bees. They were the hybrid bees with a couple different types of bees. I got the Carnolias, I got the Russians, and then I have the Italians. I think those were the 4 I got. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, those were the 4. Those were the 4 types of bees that I got. No, I got Buckfast. Sorry, I had 5. I have Buckfast as well. I thought I had another one. So I had 5 types. I got 5 different types of bees. And then I lost the Italians, and all the other ones seem to be doing very well. The Carnolias are actually doing the best. I actually had one hive I've already split twice. So that's actually the Carnolias are the ones doing real. Next year I will be adding Saskatoon, and then there's another. Somebody had suggested another type of honeybee I might be able to actually find. And so these are all based off of the European honeybee. They're just slightly variances. They've got different qualities. That's actually what makes the only thing that's a little bit different. The Russians, the one thing that makes the Russians a little bit different compared to the rest of the honeybees is the Russians have a little bit more of the European honeybee, or the black bee. I think it's, yeah, the black bee, which is actually extinct now in Europe, but they still have some of the genes of the black honeybee, which was, I guess, really prominent in Europe at one particular point. And then they started breeding them with European honeybees, and so the Russians still have some of those genes. So. And then the Buckfast, I haven't confirmed where my Buckfast came from, but these Buckfast bees aren't as angry as last year's was, but some of the Buckfast in the United States, especially if they're from Texas and such, Buckfast and the Africanized honeybees seem to breed very well together, and they kind of middleized the genes, unlike where if the Africans breeded with the Italians, or if the Africans breeded with the Carnolias, most of the African genes came out, but something with the Buckfast, it kind of centers them, and they don't have as much. So last year I thought some of the Buckfast that I had might have had some Africanized genes into them. And honestly, the only really downfall to the Africanized ones is they're more aggressive, and they group sting instead of individual sting. So, and that's part of the reason why they're dangerous, is because they're from warmer regions, and so they group sting. And so if you come across a hive that's got, 1 million bees in it, and 400 of them decide that they're going to come sting you instead of 40, like, that's going to be, that's going to be a big deal. I don't remember. Yeah, you wouldn't make it past. I don't remember. Mark, were you watching last year, or if there's anybody else watching last year, the time that the Russians got really mad at me and I got stung a whole lot that day? Do you guys remember how many times I got stung? I want to say that I got stung about 25 times at one time last year, but I think that's the most I've ever got stung in a day.
I don't remember that. I remember you getting stung on the lip, obviously, but I don't remember you like getting like mauled.
Yeah, one of the times last year when I was doing the show, the Russians got mad at me, and then it was about to rain, so I couldn't walk away like I normally do, and I had to put the Russians back. I had to put the hive back together before the rain came, and so that meant I just had to stand there and take it to get them back, because I was worried more about the entire hive. And that's not a good, for me, the way I beekeep, that's not a good tactic. And so, like, they got me all over the place.
Tried to tank it against the bees.
Yeah, yeah. I tried to tank it against the bees, and I don't ever do that anymore. That's not. Nope, nope. If it's an emergency situation, like I even try, I try not. That was a good lesson that I learned there too. I try not to ever take apart a hive as much as I took apart that hive, just in case something happens, like in that scenario. So
Not
nowadays,
on a day that it might rain anyway.
yeah, not on a date, yeah. So, because I had, I had 2 boxes, and I had pretty much, I was going to add a third box, and I had every frame pretty much taken out, and I had them separated all throughout different parts of the yard, and I had the queen in one spot and most of the bees in the other, and then the weather, then the Russians were getting mad at me, and then the weather was about to change, and I needed to put them all back into the box and then double stack them and make sure I was keeping the queen safe, and the bees were just angry in a very small window to do all that, and it was just not bueno. So I was wearing a veil that day. But they still got me all over my arms and legs. So that was the day. That was the day I knew for a fact I wasn't allergic to bees, because being stung that much, you feel it, and you do feel it. But that was the most I've ever stung in a day. In general, guys, for those that might be worried, in general, I like the last video that I did. I think we went through 4 hives, and I'm not even sure if I even got stung that day. I don't think I did. Well, yeah, Lisa says it only takes 1 sting. She's right. I mean, she got stung right here on the head, and her whole face swelled up, and she just wasn't feeling well for a couple days. So I opt the one advice now I'll tell everyone when it comes to beekeeping and having bees and that kind of stuff. Probably the most important thing is just wear a hat. I would say that's probably that's probably more important than even the veil and anything else, is the hat, because if a bee gets stuck in your hair, like Mark, you might not have to worry about wearing a hat, but if bees get stuck in your hair, they get tangled up, and they don't want to sting you, but now they're all tangled up in your hair, and they just don't know what to do, and so their instinct is then to sting. Yeah. Yeah, and like Lisa said, then as the people get in there and try to pull the bee out, the bee panics even more, so, it's just it's a bad scenario. I have decided, I don't know if you guys will watch. I have decided I start wearing gloves more often, and part of that is I notice I can be more calm if I'm wearing gloves, because I don't really like to get stung on my tips of my fingers, because it sucks. So, just simply wearing gloves. Like I still prefer short sleeves. I'll still roll up my sleeves, because if I'm gonna get stung on the arm, I want to know. Like I hate it when they get on my shirt and I'm not sure if they're going to be able to go through the material of my shirt or not through the material. And I'm also not going to wear a really heavy shirt, because I just don't want to do that. So I'll just go short sleeve shirt. And I've done well. Like even with the bees yesterday, even after I dropped them, I didn't wear a veil, and it was pretty good. So I do the bill of a hat. If you're not going to wear a veil, wearing glasses in the bill of a hat works well, because the bees will hit the bill of the hat and then fall down. So it all works out well. Yes, Lisa?
This is when you edit and clip it, and then like 2 days from now, you're like, so from now on, I will always be.
Yeah. But for all you guys out there that might be new into beekeeping, you should definitely, the first year or so, you should definitely have a veil. I'm not a big fan of the bee suits. I actually think that I actually think the bee suits give you a false sense of security. I would say wear gloves and wear long sleeve shirt and a thicker material shirt, and then wear a veil, and you're fine. Those bee suits where it feels like you're in a hazmat suit and you're wearing all this special material and that kind of stuff. It just seems, I don't know, I think it's just overkill. Well, you're right, it only takes 1 sting, but if you're allergic to bees and that kind of stuff, then you need somebody else to probably take care of bees for you. So, Yeah, well, and the other thing is like, you know, I've told a lot of you guys out there before about how I think that's a good idea to get your smell into the bees. So, you know, spend time. Don't go and work on your bees right after you've showered, or if you're wearing a lot of, you know, stuff that doesn't smell like a human. That way it's a regular smell. You smell the same, you know, and maybe even a little sweaty, and maybe just like that human smell that we have, and do that when you get into your bees, and I think it'll be well. So our new friend is a very big fan of stickers, I see. They're very odd stickers, but you know, whatever. The more the merrier. Are you gonna follow me, or are you just gonna post stickers? Because I'm just curious. You can just post stickers, but you should just follow if you're gonna, you know, come in and spam stickers. Mark, did you create any of those stickers that he's running through and spamming? None of them really look like any that you would have created, so maybe the I Love White Girls is probably the closest one that.
I don't mean to alarm anybody.
Okay, man, thanks for the follow.
Being followed.
Anyways, if anybody else out there has any questions about aquaculture, permaculture, growing food, wants to talk more about bees, anything like that, let me know. We can definitely chat some more about that kind of stuff. I might be able, we might bring up I might go through here, and I had another video. I accidentally closed it, but I had another video of the of aquaponics and such. That was pretty cool. I wonder if I can find it. Oh, this is not bad. I think I've watched this video before. I think this guy's. We're gonna switch over and watch this guy. This guy, I think, this guy does it through his pool, or has set up a pool to do this system. So we'll see. Oh, this is part 2. It's probably best if I switch over to, like, you know, a part 1 or something before we jump into that. Here we go. We'll just watch this one. We'll see. I've not actually watched this video, so we'll see what this video is like, and I'll break down my opinion.
Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss hydroponics. The basic principles on which hydroponics is based, the different variations thereof, as well as some advantages and disadvantages, are all going to be covered in this video. Before we get started, we would like to say thank you for choosing to watch our content. We hope to inspire and educate all our viewers through our videos, and if you would like to see more agricultural related videos, remember to subscribe to our channel. If you like what you hear in this video, then stay tuned to the end for your own copy of our ebook on the ins and outs of hydroponics. With that in mind, let's start talking hydroponics. Plants grown hydroponically are not planted in conventional soil, unlike so many other agricultural crops. Instead, the roots are submerged in an inorganic growing medium. Nutrient-rich water is then applied to the roots of the plant. This is the basis for any hydroponic setup. You might be thinking how a plant can survive, and even thrive, without soil. To understand how hydroponically grown plants develop and mature, you need to understand the purpose that soil serves in supporting the life of a plant. One of the most important functions of soil is its ability to retain water and nutrients and supply these to the roots of the plant. In hydroponics, this need is overcome by placing the plant in an inorganic growing medium, like vermiculite, perlite, rockwool or an expanded clay substrate. Alternatively, the plants can also be placed in a simple container without any substrate or float on the water itself. The nutrient demands of the plants are then met through regular applications of a nutrient solution to the root zone of the plant. A beginner can get easily confused and overwhelmed with all the variations of the hydroponic method. So, let's take a look at the different hydroponic applications that you can try out. 1. The nutrient film technique. In this setup, plants are placed in sloping hollow pipes or channels. Nutrified water is continuously pumped through the channels over the root system. There is no need for additional growing medium like vermiculite or rockwool. The NFT is a closed system that recirculates water throughout the channels by pumping it first to the upper or higher ends of the channels that then flows down the slope. 2. Wicks.
So that median, that's actually one of the easiest ones for folks that might be interested in getting into hydroponics. And again, we were talking about aquaponics, different, but hydroponics is a slightly different variations of that. But that one is just where you can get PVC pipes. You can drill holes in the PVC pipes and you get those little baskets. I don't think I've got any sitting around, but you get those little baskets and you sit them in, and then you have nutrient-rich water. The downfall is you have to either buy the nutrient-rich water or you have to make the nutrient-rich water. But that's a really simple hydroponic system that you can do yourself, and it works really, really well. There's an exoponics variation of that, where if you have the right types of plants, you can use things like urine, or you can use things like decomposing plants and such like that, and you can also use that as your median to add the nutrient back into the system. So that's that first one that they talked about. That is the easiest one. I call it the PVC pipe method.
Systems. This is one of the simplest hydroponic setups and is perfect for beginners. A reservoir of nutrient-enriched water is placed underneath the plants. There is a wick that extends from the growing medium downwards into the reservoir. The water moves through capillary action from the reservoir into the growing medium and keeps the roots nourished and moist. Little specialist equipment is needed for this design, and it is very easy to DIY with some buckets, rope and a drill. 3. Ebb and flow. Also known as the flood and drain system, plants embedded in a growing medium are placed over a reservoir filled with nutrient water. A pump periodically forces the water up into the section housing the plants. The pump is then turned off and the water gradually flows back into the reservoir. This is another simple technique, and apart from the pump and piping, little expert equipment is required for success. 4.
So the ebb and flow, that's the one that we were watching when it comes to ebb and flow, is where you can that's where you can integrate into the fish and turn your hydroponic into an aquaponic system. And so the ebb and flow is really nice with that, because then you have your fish doing a lot of work and you're getting closer and closer to nature with that kind of idea.
Deep water culture. Here, plants are placed in pots with growing media or lightweight covers that float on the water's surface. The plant's roots then grow into the water. A pump oxygenates the water to keep the roots healthy, but apart from that, no other mechanization is required. This makes the deep water culture system great for beginners or DIY projects. 5. Drips.
So I've not done that system yet. I've actually looking at trying to set up something. I have a big container. If you guys have watched over by the bee area, I have this really big tub that I've been having water in. I have tadpoles and a bunch of stuff living in that, and that water's been in there now for a couple years. And so I was thinking about trying to make some of those rafts and try some of that particular thing. So that might be one that we try out, but I've never tried it yet, so can't give my opinion.
Systems. This technique makes use of drip lines and a pump that transports water from an underlying reservoir into the growing media encasing the plants above. Usually, a dripper will be allocated to each plant, which allows for the fine-tuning of nutrient concentrations and watering intensity. The water can be recycled, which saves time and money, or it can be siphoned out the system, which maintains the optimal nutrient concentrations in the reservoir. 6.
So that particular one, I would shy away from that one. That seems like a lot of work. And it seems like if you're going to go through all that irrigation and things of that sort, then you're getting closer and closer to traditional gardening and farther away from hydroponics.
Aeroponics. Here, plants are suspended in the air vertically or horizontally. A pump then delivers a misting of nutrient media to the roots of the plants at scheduled intervals or on a continuous basis, depending on the needs of the plant. This is a more advanced system requiring pumps, misters and timers, among other equipment, and should only be considered by expert growers to make the investment worthwhile. No matter the type of hydroponics system you decide on, you will
So that aeroponic one, aeroponics cheap. Like, you can get the little, I don't know why in this video they're saying so bad things about aeroponics, but the misters are fairly inexpensive. Like, on the porch I have an aeroponic system that I haven't quite tweaked right, but that's just because I haven't figured out the height to put everything. But I built it in, a Tupperware container or a Rubbermaid container with some PVC pipes, a aquarium pump, and the misters that I picked up on Amazon, and I think I have a total investment of $50 maybe. Like, the aquarium pump was the only thing that was really, really expensive with that. And yeah, I like aeroponics. Aeroponics is really good if you've got limited space and you can't put a lot of weight and you just need to have just a little bit of water set up the system. Yeah, he's right about the timer, but you can go get cheap timers at Walmart and such. And the other cool thing is now with all those microcomputers, things like Raspberry Pis and such like that, you can have those already set up that with particular gauges, with humidity gauges or other types of gauges, that it'll just kick on when it knows the plant needs it and that kind of stuff. And so, for maybe $100, you can have a completely enclosed system that's going to run optimally to, keep your energy cost at a minimum. So, I mean, aeroponic is definitely a wave. It's definitely kind of the evolution of where hydroponic is going next. Mark, you were going to say something?
No, I've not seen it before. It does seem to be a better technology. But I imagine there's less stuff that you can grow with aeroponics than you can with hydroponics. Like, it's good for tomato, but it's not so good for other things.
Yeah, that's true.
You'll always have to consider the advantages and disadvantages before you start your production. Let's start with the positives of growing plants hydroponically. Firstly, you can set up a hydroponic operation, big or small, almost anywhere. Because no soil is needed, you can grow a considerable number of plants indoors even. You can maximize your yield because the roots of hydroponically grown plants are kept compact. This is possible because when they are provided with the perfect amount of water and nutrients, roots do not need to grow in search of more. You will also be free from the constraints of poor soil conditions and environmental pollutants, allowing you to grow almost any herb or leafy vegetable anywhere. The money saved on water and nutrient inputs is another advantage offered to hydroponic growers. In conventional agriculture, most of the water and nutrients applied to the plants is lost through drainage, runoff, and evaporation. In hydroponics, this problem is overcome by applying only the exact amount of water and nutrients needed by the plants. The savings are further improved in circulatory hydroponics systems, as the same water is pumped through the system over and over again. Hydroponic systems also allow you to overcome the constraints imposed by a change of season. Climate-controlled systems allow the grower to fine-tune the temperature and lighting to suit the needs of their plants. This can open up the possibility of producing crops in their off-season, which can ensure you receive a premium for your harvest and limit the need for expensive and polluting international air freight. The climate control also means that plants grow faster. Because you can alter the environmental conditions as needed, the plants can always be provided with the optimal conditions for growth. The lack of soil will also eliminate any soil-borne diseases or weed infestations. If this problem is solved, then the money spent on the usual control methods will no longer be required. The labor and time spent mitigating pest and weed problems will also be removed. These savings can either be reinvested into expanding production, or it will result in improved profit margins. Furthermore, the plants will be less susceptible to soil-borne pathogens and will not need to compete with weeds for water or nutrients. Lastly, you will be able to change crops or cultivars easily and quickly if market demand fluctuates away from or towards certain products. You will therefore be able to keep up to date with consumer trends and meet demands as they arise. It is easy to see why hydroponics is a favorite among commercial growers and hobbyists alike. However, there are some obstacles that every grower needs to consider before they start. While a small, backyard setup may not be too costly, the startup costs of a commercial hydroponics operation will be expensive. You will therefore need to make sure that you have a solid business plan and contingencies in case of unforeseen obstacles. This may be a barrier for small-scale farmers who cannot afford the initial investment or be approved for the necessary loans. Relating to the expenses of setting up a hydroponic production, you will need the expertise and experience required to make a commercial setup a success. You do not want to waste money on mistakes and mishaps that could have been easily prevented with the correct experience. This is less of an issue for hobbyists, as making mistakes and learning from them is all a part of the hydroponics experience. Lastly, and this is especially so for large, electric-powered systems, the risk posed by power and water outages is a big one. Because the roots of the plants are not anchored in water-retaining soil, prolonged periods without water or nutrient applications will be devastating and result in large-scale losses. It is therefore wise to invest in generators and boreholes if you are a commercial grower. In conclusion, there are so many benefits of growing your plants hydroponically. If you are interested in starting a backyard, small-scale operation, then do not hesitate. However, if you are looking to go big or expand your production, more time and thought will be needed in developing a business strategy, a budget and contingency plan before you take that leap. Thank you to everyone who has made it to the end of the video. We hope you learned something new and enjoyed it. To download this information in your own ebook, remember to check out the description below. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
So yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing, is that there's actually so much awesome data and so much information out there. Again, I'm linking all this kind of stuff in the Discord. We also have some other stuff on my website. So for those that may not know this, but I run a non-profit website where I teach people gardening, farming, animal husbandry, things of that sort. There's the link to the website. It's the Mavis Institute. You guys can go and check that out and such like that. And just to make it aware, not that many of you are ever interested, but all your donations are tax deductible. So if anybody ever needs to lower their taxes every year, let me know, and we can work that out, and you can give a nice tax deduction, being a 501c3. Oh, and here's the Discord, guys. I just put a link to the website. There is the link to the Discord. Well, I think probably going to call it an early evening tonight. I was out in the garden most of the day doing some stuff, and kind of have a bunch of stuff to do tomorrow, especially with the weather being nicer. But I wanted to thank everyone for coming and watching. By the way, I think now all of this should be also broadcasting on... I'm broadcasting here on DLive. I'm broadcasting on Twitch. I'm broadcasting on YouTube, which is YouTube's the same as X Dr. Firefly. And we are now also doing a lot of stuff over on prohibited.tv. So if you guys are not familiar with prohibited.tv, it is a new streaming site. Let's see if I spelled it right. I think I did. Yep. I need to put the dot instead of a col. There we go. There's the dot. There's the site. Come and check us out. If anybody decides they want to stream over there, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you stream all the to learn how to stream. It's a really cool, really nice streaming site. lots of cool stuff is going to be coming in the future to the site. So right now it's good to get in early doors because you can really get you can definitely be on the carousel and you can get a lot of cool attention and meet some really interesting folks there. So if you have some time, check that out. If you want to learn more about farming and bees and such like that, we do this show every day or every Thursday, and then Sundays or somewhere around Sundays I do my my bee class where we walk and check out the beehives. And then randomly throughout the week, if I feel up to it or if there's just something worth checking out, I'll do another show. Sometimes we're out in the chicken coop checking out the chickens. Sometimes we're just in the yard walking around checking out the stuff we're growing here on the farm. I linked to the Mavis Institute, which all the just a bunch of wealth of information and a bunch of free stuff in there, and a link to the Discord. And again, guys, everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome to jump. And yes, Dan, Thursday seems to fall into the best category for me to be able to do this show when it comes to time and such like that. Wednesdays was just not working for me, and Tuesdays was just Tuesdays just didn't seem a good night. Even though I prefer to do it on Tuesdays, Tuesdays just didn't seem to be a good night for everybody else. So Thursdays is the new with the Mesoverse is the new day for the Mesoverse. I'll also be putting together a podcast, or restarting my podcast rather soon. I just have to get all that together. And yeah, if you want to find me and you want to follow me and you want to see all the silly things that I'm doing, most everything is X Dr. Firefly on all of the internets. And that's also including silly things like OnlyFan and Twitch and Gab and all of the other stuff. So if there's anything that you guys are interested in, yeah, and if anybody out there in the internet world if any of you want to throw money at me, I'm not sure why you would, but let's just say you do. Let's say you've got more money than sense and you want to throw some money at me. There's plenty of ways to do that. You can, right down below, you can do the stuff with Cash App or PayPal, or I have a Patreon. I'll be honest, I haven't actually checked that page out in a while, but I know I've got that. And other than that, you can also do the Amazon Smile, which is the Mavis Institute. So you don't even have to give me money. Amazon does that for you. But regardless, guys, the idea is I really just want to get as much information out to you as possible. I want to share all of the wealth of knowledge that I have, and if there's anything that you guys want to know, and you just want me to focus on, or you want me to do some education on, or you want me to, learn more about, then just hit me up on the Discord and I will do some research when I have some time, and we can do some hyper focusing and such like that. So other than that, I want to thank everybody again for hanging out. I want to thank Golf was here for a while, and Yam was here for a while, and in the chat we had Mock and Dan, and I think we had a couple other people maybe hanging out. I think I saw Terry Bacon in the chat earlier today as well. So I want to thank all those guys, all of my DLive people there on DLive coming and hanging out for a bit and all that wonderful stuff. And I also want to thank you, Mark, for being here again this evening and giving some fine insight on some of the aeroponic and hydroponic systems that we were watching. So if, in the future, again, if there's some more gardening, permaculture, off-grid, homesteading type shows that you want me to talk about, you want me to review, you want to just watch together, let me know, and we will put that for future episodes. I don't know what next week's is going to be about yet. I'm kind of a slacker. I kind of wait till the last minute to do things, but we will see what next week's show is going to be. Other than that, 9:30ish every Thursday Eastern Time. We'll be doing the show. And other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. I'm Doc, Justin, Dr. Firefly, whatever you guys like to call me. So you guys have a good evening, and adios. And Mark, Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
That's not what I wanted to do. Let's do that.